Tonight on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live, 11 down, 1 to go. For the first time in series history, tonight we say it is the final race of the regular season as we prep for the Irish Hills of Michigan to set in stone the 8 drivers who will head into the playoffs in 2 weeks' time to fight for sim racing's grandest of prizes. This is round number 12 of the 2017 NASCAR PEAK Antifreeze Series powered by iRacing. And as we get set to go racing for 250 miles tonight, we step back 2 weeks ago to Indianapolis with a look at this week's iRacing race recap. American Ethanol, green flag flies, and Zach Novak takes off. We are underway at the Brickyard for the 11th race on this NASCAR PEAK Antifreeze Series. Alfala going to get single filed out in second, and moving up, the 7 to Mitchell Hunt clears the Odine for third.
Yeah, 0.3 of a second the last time by. Ray Alfala was able to close on Zach Novak. Now they run down the back straightaway, and Ray Alfala got that run out of corner number 2. He pokes the nose underneath the 15 car down into corner number 3. He'll get the whole car there into turn 3. And Ray Alfala will come out to the short chute with the lead position for the first time here this evening.
Issues at a turn 2 is going to come at lap number 14, second to caution on the night, and it all started, as you said, with Bolton taking a second look here in just a moment. The 36 got out of shape, snapped it back up and into the outside wall, and race off of pit road. Novak's gonna get it. The number 1 pit stall and a beautiful stop puts him right back in front on 4 fresh ones. Alfala going to go to the inside. Zach Novak just doesn't have anything for him, and a 2 is going to get by. Here comes the 15. What a crossover into the corner. It was the 15 who was at such a disadvantage down the straightaway that Alfala got right by him, but a beautifully executed cross-up going to keep it side by side at a 2, and Alfala responds with an equally as good move on the outside of turn 2 to stay in front. There's problems at a turn 4. 1 car around on the inside.
That will draw the caution once again, and all those drivers that were coming down pit road, well, it's definitely going to change their strategy. And there's the 35 of Chris Shearburn. There's one of the drivers that was involved in chasing down a playoff berth, and it looks like the chase just took a hard hit over here, and it looks like Ray Alfala will take the opportunity to come down onto pit road, as will the rest of these drivers.
But Novak beat him off for the pit lane. That 2 is not going to win this race off of pit road because he overshot the pit box. Novak is gone. Do we see a challenge for second off? Yes. Alfala going to end up 4th because of that mistake. The rookies getting on by. Luza going to take off in 2nd, and Zelensky going to jump up to 3rd. As the green flag flies, and we get back underway. Novak, not a spectacular restart. I think that nudge from Alfala is going to help him stay in front in the battle for second. As he goes to corner 1, he steps down in front of Luza. Tight one, but he's got the spot, and now a big run in the center of the corner. Here he comes for the race lead.
Yeah, Alfala was able to get the position on Ryan Michaeluza, and here comes Zach Novak on the inside. This is the second green flag start for Michael J. Johnson. The first time he held it for 3 Mississippi, this time he held it for 6 Mississippi. Now they're putting 3 wide down the backstretch. As Ray Alfala, he wants to get in front. He wants to lead this race. Ryan Michaeluza very late on the brakes with that damaged front end. He'll manage to go in, and he will pick up the position. And Michael J. Johnson is falling like a stone right now as they're fighting for the lead, still going 2 by 2 through 3 and 4.
They were door banging in 3, and they are still all over each other. This time at 4 does the 1. Trying to go to the inside. There goes Luza looking to the bottom. He'll jump back up. Will stay 2 by 2 for the race lead. Alfala led it that time by the start-finish line. Novak preferred lane. You can see all of the rubber that's been put down on this racetrack over the course of the 68 laps completed to this point, and they are still side by side for the race lead. Nobody is willing to give up as Alfala squeezed up top, but still gets back to the gas. Caution going to come out, though. He'll let out of the gas. There's issues on the back. I believe it's with the 22. Couple of drivers slow. It looks like Brian Blackford has found himself in problems.
We'll see who gets the advantage off of pit road. The 2 of Ray Alfala overshoots his box one more time. He's going to have to back up, and I think that's going to cost him a little bit here, Evan.
So Alfala going to lose a handful of spots off for the pit lane. It'll be almost 6 positions. There goes the 15 of Zach Novak. Green flag flies. 9 laps to go from the Brickyard.
And look at Jimmy Mullis. What the start that Jimmy Mullis got. He's up to position number 5, trying to poke that nose to the inside of Alfala. Can't get the run, but Ray is all over the back bumper of Blake Reynolds. the one of Luza to the inside. These Fords are going at it for position number 2. It's all behind Novak as they run down the back straightaway. Look at the run the outside gets. Reynolds goes there, and Mullis thought about 3 wide. There's a block.
Oh!
66 around.
Reynolds gets turned. The caution is going to come back out. Ray Alfala is involved, and it is a mess. Down the back straightaway, still wrecking to quarter number 3 as we were waiting and waiting for that to happen. And at lap number 92, that battle for second was great news for Zach Novak, and the 66 had finally got around him. And I was watching the 40 and the 1. The 40 tried to go to the bottom, Luza blocked him, but instead it was the contact between Alfala and Reynolds. 4 laps to go from Indianapolis. The 15 gonna get cleared by the yard of bricks. He'll lead to turn 1. Problems behind in corners 1 and 2. It is David Rattler. The 09 Ford is backed into the outside fence, and that'll be all she wrote. Caution at lap number 97. Zach Novak going to come across the start-finish line at a slow to pace behind the iRacing.com pace car. The result going to be just as sweet. First career NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series win. Zach Novak, your winner tonight from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The road to $10,000 runs through the Irish hills of Brooklyn, Michigan. Live tonight on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. This is race number 12 and the final on the regular season of this 2017 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, powered by iRacing, as we get set to race tonight's Michigan 250. Happy to be with you topside from the Michigan International Speedway, and say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome you to RaceSpotTV's continuing coverage of the iRacing World Championship Series. We're here tonight as we welcome you upstairs. Evan Posocco, Cam Walsh, Tim Terry alongside with you as always. Downstairs, Hugo Luis is pushing the buttons and bringing us to you, Cam. One race to go. After tonight, we will know the 8 drivers who will fight for the top prize.
Yeah, not only that, they'll be able to kick off the playoff at Darlington, which is always an interesting round. 183 laps will be that one, but 125 on today, the cards here at Michigan International Speedway.
The points coming into tonight's race: Tim Bobby Zelensky at the top of the pile. Ray Alfala not in this race tonight. Second, Ryan Luza, Corey Vincent, Zach Novak, Marcus Richardson, Tristan Challenger, and Logan Clampett are those top 8. Biggest thing is that after tonight, we'll have completed 12 weeks. All of those drivers will get 1 drop, so the top 11 results are going to get their points, so it might shuffle things up a bit.
Watch for Lowe, watch for Busa, and watch for Dylan Duval. Those are the 3 drivers that have the chance at bursting the bubble. We'll see what happens here over 125 laps.
And we'll let you know where that championship picture is as the night works its way through, but cars are on track. So let's head down to the asphalt and take a look at tonight's RaceSpotTV starting grid for race number 12. Zach Novak to qualify out of pole position tonight in his number 15 Toyota. The 36-473 puts him on pole alongside David Rattler in second. Cody Bias and Kenny Humpy going to make up row number 2. They'll start 3rd and 4th position respectively. Michael Conti and Michael J. Johnson 5th and 6th spot. Back on row number 3, fastest driver of the warm-up session, Dylan Duval 7th and qualifying inside of row 4 to his outside. Corey Vincent will start from 8th position. Chris Shearbird is going to start 9th tonight, and Logan Clampett just inside the cut will roll from 10th.
Bobby Zelensky, that number 83 car, has been rolling hot all season long. Championship leading right now. Hill will start from the 11th position. Mid-pack could present some problems, but we'll see how that as night goes as the cars are rolling. Matt Busa will be starting in 12th. Taylor Hurst, 13th. Andrew Fash, the third, good qualifying up to 14th position will he be starting from. Brad Davies in the 15th. Chris Overland will start in 16th position. Chandler Kryzak in 17th. Jake Sturgis, 18th. Kyle Putz, 19th. And Alex Bergeron will finish out your top 20.
Brian Schoenberg really likes his car. He'll start in 21st. Mitchell Hunt 22nd. Marcus Richardson, watch for the 01 tonight. Big championship implications from 23rd. Christian Chalner 24th. Jimmy Mullis 25th. Blackford, Daly, Schmidt, Diaz, and Reynolds complete your top 30.
Joe Littorello get a start tonight in 31st. He's accompanied by Ryan Lowe in 32nd, Casey Tucker 33rd, Will Cooley 34th, and Jake Nichols in 35th position. Three final drivers qualified through 38th position. It'll be Nolan Scott, Josh Berry, and Tyler Hill. Final four names through 42nd in on provisional. That's Derek Bordeaux in 39th, Nick Ottinger in 40th, Timmy Hill in 41st, and Adam Gilliland in 42nd. The field paces 2 wide into quarters 3 and 4. And as the pace car gets set to make the sharp left-hand turn down to the safety of the pit lane, as always, you're happy that you're spending your evening with us at RaceSpotTV and to iRacing Live. Zach Novak is going to get set to get this the final race of the regular season underway. In 125 laps from now, we will know the 8 drivers who will make up the first ever playoff grid in this series history. Here we go as we get set to go racing in the Michigan 250 green flag for the 12th race of this 2017 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series campaign. Pole sitter leads to turn 1.
And a great start from Zach Novak as they work themselves into corner number 1. This is an extraordinarily fast 2-mile oval, as this is probably one of the fastest tracks we're going to go to. That is not a super speedway, no restricted plates on these cars. As Ray already, Cody Bias looking to the inside of David Rattler as they're working down the backstretch for the first time.
Fastest track on the calendar. These guys just getting the cars up to speed, 207 miles an hour into turn 3 that time. Bias on the inside of the racetrack is going to get a spot away from David Rattler. And looks like the 5 of Michael Conti also following him up and through. Conti started this race in 5th. He's got 2 spots by the completion of lap number 1. Not clear on a Rattler yet, but did have a nose at the start-finish line. And the 09 Ford really can't do a whole lot from that far up the racetrack. Conti going to get the position. And now here comes Dylan Duvall to continue the onslaught.
Dylan Duvall going to work the inside of the 09 of David Rattler as they work down the back straightaway and into corner number 3. Behind Duvall sits his teammate Kenny Humpy. Humpy has had an up-and-down season so far. He's looking to try to make it a little bit further up the standings and try to solidify his top 20 position after Michigan here this week. The 10 of Corey Vincent as well within the championship playoff contention. We'll see what he can do over those next 3 weeks, but he's going to try to pick up a position here on Rattler as he tries to follow the train through.
He's really gotten stuck on the outside of the racetrack. You figure he might lose a couple of spots, but he just hasn't found a spot in line. Since Duvall got to his inside, you mentioned Humpy up at the bottom. Now the 10 of Corey Vincent. Behind Vincent, the 39 of Johnson. And it's a very wide racetrack. Everybody getting single filed out pretty quickly up near the front of the field. But the 09 continues to fall back. Now with the 39 of Johnson up on his inside, it looks like that maybe the bleed will stop once he falls to 9th position or so. He's 8th position now. It looks like he does find a spot in line. Not a good opening couple of laps, though, for the driver who initially started this race at the outside of the front row. That's not the only fight in the racetrack. The 55 of Schoenberg is doing some work in the middle of the pack. The 55 is on the inside of the 71 of Mitchell Hunt. That one a battle for 19th down the back.
Yeah, and just a little bit of salvation found for David Rattler as he finds that position. But either way, most of this field outside of Ryan Schoenberg and Mitchell Hunt are basically single file right now. They would know that this is going to be a bit of a long race. They want to get this thing underway. 4 laps down already, heading on to lap 5. But either way, though, Schoenberg, he's staying on the inside. He's even getting a little help from Brad Davies, a little bit of a pump going into 1. And that'll hopefully put Brad Davies through Mitchell Hunt. Mitchell Hunt should slot in. Yes, he will. And we'll go pretty much all single file through the entire field, except for Brian Blackford all the way back in 26th position as he moves on the inside of Byron Daly.
And that 78 at Challenger just in front of those drivers also going to make a move, as it looks like Blackford going to have the upper hand on the 06. It seems the inside, the place to be still early on tonight for Michigan. 5 down, 120 laps to go as of this time by. So Blackford does complete the pass for what's 26th, actually 25th position. He drops the 06 back to 26th. But in front of him, Christian Challenger trying to work his way up to the field. He just got around Mitchell Hunt as he tries to work himself out of the middle of the pack. We are single file, but there's not a lot of cars really spread apart. Maybe aside from Zach Novak and Cody Bias, the race between first and second is 0.3 of a second. It is quite honestly one of the biggest gaps per position throughout the racetrack, because although it's a single file line, you got a lot of people, especially at a racetrack this fast, using the draft to stay close to one another.
Kenny Humpy is going the opposite direction here in the last couple laps. Humpy lost one spot to Corey Vincent. Now he's hung on the outside, and as you mentioned, Evan, not really the place to be right now. He's going to lose 2 more to Michael Johnson and David Rattler. That will move him back to 8th. Humpy tried the crossover off 2, trying to get to the inside of the 09 and cannot get there. He'll try it back down into corner number 3, but Humpy loses 3 spots in that exchange, and here comes Chris Shearburn, head of steam into corner number 3. Can't do anything with it there, but he'll look at the 58 coming out of corner number 4. Great run for the 35, no place to put it. We'll see what he can do as he looks to the outside of the 58.
Yeah, typically drivers have been going to the bottom to try to make a move. The 58 did do a good job coming off of 4, seeing that run coming from behind to protect the bottom. And Shearburn with a really high entry into the corner is going to allow the 58 to get away from him. Actually, the 40 to clamp it, closes up to the back bumper just a little bit. Clamp it into tonight at the very back end of that playoff bubble. The top 8 drivers are in. He is inside that window by 14 points into tonight. Should be okay once the drops are factored in, as long as that 44 Chevrolet does not have a bad night. He doesn't have to win this race. If he can keep that car in one piece and right around the top 10 where he sits right now, it would be mission accomplished for that team.
As long as they can keep that Chevrolet's nose clean, he should be all right. He goes on the inside of Chris Shearburn. He did not have the night he wanted at Indianapolis a couple of weeks ago as he cuts in behind the 35 of Chris Shearburn, but still seeing some two-eyed action between Schoenberg. Now he's trying to go on Chandler Kryzak. Jimmy Mullis is involved with Brad Davies now dueling for the position number 19, just trying to crack open the top 20 here. We'll note, though, this track is getting a little bit warmer here. 74 degrees in the air, 82 degrees on the track, as we've got a fight for the 6th position as David Rattler, well, he wants to head on back to where he started from this race 10 laps ago.
It's going to be a long march for him to get back up to second if he's able to do so. He's 2 seconds off for the driver who occupies that spot now. How about some 3 wide? He got loose off of the turn, and staying high side is Johnson, but going to the low side is Kenny Humpy. So Humpy now going to go side by side with the 09 in the quarter and get that position, so it's a 3-way fight. The number 6 spot still may not be done. The 09 had an option to go 3 wide. Instead, he'll keep it on the bumper.
It's about to be a crowd because the 35 of Shearburn has joined those 3 cars battling for the spot, and Logan Clampett is there as well in car number 44. So this is a nice little battle for the 5th place position, or check that 6th place position as Humpy comes up at a corner number 2. 39 of Johnson, the 09 of Rattler side by side. Rattler got a great run out of the corner that time. 35 of Chris Shearburn going to try to get the 09's pull down the straightaway. The 09 slides to the inside. The 35 of Shearburn is on the outside line, and Evan, we talked about it a little bit earlier on. The inside line seems to be the place to be, but Shearburn has been making his passes for the most part up on the high side. Started in position number 9, fell back a little bit earlier, now up to 8th, and here he goes again to the outside of the 09 of David Rattler. Looks like he's one of the only cars, at least in the top 10, that can make these passes on the high side.
It's 2 laps in a row that Johnson was in what you would think would be the preferred lane, the middle lane and the 3-wide, or the bottom in a 2-way fight, and has gotten loose. It cost him position. He falls to 10th spot, and now is further back than where he was originally, and started talking about him trying to work his way back up to the field. He's fallen 4 positions. And 09 Rattler is trying to make something work. He's funded with the 35 of Shearburn, cleared him off of the corner, but outside of the racetrack, going to get a little bit of a run down the straightaways as Michigan International Speedway clocking it at 18 degrees of banking in the corners. Cars are known to be quite loose. If you can't get a handle on him, you got to be really easy as well. Get back to the gas. Ironically enough, turn 2 could be a calamity corner tonight because that wall jumps up real fast on you. Turn 4 does it well, but turn 2 maybe a little bit more so.
Yeah, especially if you're fighting for position going across the start-finish line, diving into 1 and 2. But this track, it's a little bit of a lighter gray concrete, you'll note, or a lighter gray cement or asphalt. But you'll see as the track goes on, you'll see that dark rubber line, and that middle line, that's typically where the cars are going to be starting to form that line. I'm already actually seeing that line start to develop on the exit of corners number 2 and 4. And I think what we'll see as the day goes on that these cars are going to be getting, in fact, looser, as I see Kenny Humpy now looking to go to the inside of Corey Vincent. I had thought that perhaps with all the fighting, Corey Vincent would be nice and happy to see that, but you know what? Just like that, he loses the position to Kenny Humpy. Humpy working his way through the field.
It almost looked like the 10 let the 58 go. Humpy was digging, got a little bit sideways at time at a 4 after making the pass, but once he got to the inside, Vincent really didn't put up much of a fight, and the 10 is quite slow this time down the front stretch. So as we rocket back off to turn 1, here comes Shearbird on the inside. Here comes the Oneida machine. So you make one mistake, and because the corners are just so long at this Michigan International Speedway, the straightaways are so long, there's no part of the racetrack in which you cannot rely on momentum. Any sort of a small mistake, especially off of the corner, is really going to hurt you for at least a lap and a half before you get all that back.
And this battle continues on. The 09 of David Rattler gets a little bit free off of corner number 4. He'll work to the inside of Matt Busa in car number 34. Busa will hold that position, though. Rattler will have to fall back in line behind them. Michael Johnson and Logan Clampett, a part of this little train, and not too far back is Overland. They fan back to 2 wide. The 10 car gets a little bit loose off of corner number 2. Still trying to handle it off the corner. Backs up Matt Busa. Busa can't go to the inside. David Rattler is there. Rattler continues to work that inside line. He'll try to pick up at least one spot on Matt Busa, but that 10 car is an absolute handful these last 2 laps as it comes out of corner number 4.
And he's going to find himself in a 3-wide situation. Busa to the outside and Rattler to the inside. 3-way fight for 7th position on a racetrack, and a 39 of Johnson and the 44 of Clampett are right there as well, making it total a 5-car battle for the spot. But the 34 was really high in the corner. He's going to try to keep it on the outside, and it's the 10. Again, in that middle lane, scrunched between the driver to the inside and the out, that cannot keep the car stable off of the turn. He had to lift. He loses those positions and falls back to 9th, and now Clampett on the inside, try to make it another.
Excellent calling from these spotters here. These guys were able to drive their cars all around each other comfortably. Nobody looked too worried or scared as they went through the corners. That was excellent driving on all hands accounts. Logan Clampett, though, he wants to get himself in this action, obviously being conservative. Maybe not on the cards today, as he'll go on the inside of Corey Vincent, who is quickly finding his way going through the field, only in reverse. He's currently right behind Logan Clampett as David Rattler is there, trying to now close up onto Matt Busa. It seems to me, Evan, that these cars, they're quickly able to pull away. As looking ahead, actually, Cody Bias is now peeking out of the inside of Michael Conti for position number 2. But what I was just the point I wanted to make was that these cars, they seem to be able to pull away from each other on the straights, but some of these cars just manage to really close up on the corners, and that keeps these guys a lot closer than you would think they would be.
Talking about Michael Conti, that peak Ford continues to run in 2nd position. He was able to get that spot away from Bias a couple of laps off of the restart, and the 27 is trying to fight back. I want to remind you that the opening portion of tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Peak Antifreeze and Coolant, the official antifreeze of NASCAR and a proud sponsor of the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, powered by iRacing. Looks like that 5's going to be able to hold off the 27 for just a little bit longer. There has been some great fighting just a little bit further back of the field. For a while, it was around 17th or 18th position. Now it's back by the 48, a Krizik in 20th, but a lot going on back here. Blackford, Bergeron, Ottinger, Richardson, these drivers have been going at it from the start of the race, and I don't think that group of 5 cars has gone a lap without somebody passing someone.
Yeah, this has been a quite entertaining battle, and there's been battles all throughout this little pack here so far this evening that have continued to really put on a show throughout the first 20 laps of this event. And so far, clean and green, but for the most part, it looks like right now at least the top 10, the drivers have found a place to race right now in single file for the time being, but I'm sure that's going to change as we continue on.
And more funny, more towards the front of the field, Bobby Zelensky in the number 14th spot under attack by Brian Schoenberg. Schoenberg not able to complete the pass that time at the inside. And the 41 of Jake Sturgis is in this one as well. You're talking about the drivers just outside of the top 10. That puts them about 5.5 seconds off of your race leader, Zach Novak, who's working a race high 9/10 of a second advantage over second.
Yeah, and it just looks like, to me anyway, Zach Novak is looking very comfortable, but it's this duel between Conti and Bias. These guys are trading lap times. I mean, it was a 38.310 versus a 38.312, and this time it is just scantly ahead towards the favor of Cody Bias, but you know what? Michael Conti's got the positioning. Both of these cars are very comfortable in that middle line as they're coming off the exit of corner number 2. Cody Bias, he tries to line them up. These cars are hitting well over 200 miles an hour. They're hitting almost 204 before they get off the throttle. As it just looks to me like Matt Busa in the back distance. He wants to get some action. He goes to the inside of Chris Sherburne. Looks like he'll have the easy position, but just not so fast. Chris Sherburne looks like he's gotten a good run off of the exit of 4.
You can see how fast he was going into the corner and towards the center, and as you continue to see this line get rubbered in, the 34 was right on that preferred lane with the 35 much higher up. Now, Sherburne out of that lane again. The 34 is going to be better going into the corner, and Busa is going to move up into the number 7 spot. So you continue to have drivers move up and down here and there. I'm still keeping a half eye on that fight for second. Bias is still plastered on the deck lid. The 5 of Michael Conti hasn't gone to make another move to the inside in a couple of laps, but they are still very much tight together as we see a fight a little bit further back. Corey Vincent, Jake Sturgis side by side. That one's for 14th.
14th place continues to heat up, and as you mentioned, keeping a half eye on that battle for position number 2. There's so many battles around this racetrack, but Brian Schoenberg trying to come to life here in car number 55 as a caution flag will fly for the first time this evening.
Looks like problems on the front straightaway. A couple of drivers down into the grass, and here and it may be the 7 Ryan Lowe, who's already taken a toe to the pit lane. Caution at lap number 23, and that is a bad spot to have an issue. You're taking a look at the replay right now. The 11 machine got loose coming out of turn 4. That's Davies slow in front of him. The 7 tried to check up low, got into him, and then got tagged from behind. Looks like Blake Reynolds didn't see him, and the 7 spun down to the grass. And if there is one place at a racetrack like this that you do not want to hit, it is the entry to the pit lane, and Ryan Lowe in that 7 is stuck in the barrels.
Yeah, he managed to find that pit lane exactly. I would almost presume if that 7 car and the number 66 car, Blake Reynolds behind, wasn't there, Brad Davies, I think, could have saved it. I don't think Ryan Lowe got off the throttle at all, and maybe if he did, that would have saved at least going into the pit wall. But either way, for Brad Davies, was easily able to recover the car, a little bit of rear end damage, but for Ryan Lowe, well, that is a very bad way to end. You know, it would be the regular season. That number 7 car is not going to be crossing the finish line on the lead lap tonight, or really at all.
Lowe came into tonight 1 position out of a transfer spot to the playoffs. That is not going to help him. He has put the car into the garage. His night and his playoff hopes come to an end with that incident. And there aren't many racetracks that have a pit wall like that. Obviously, the sister track to Michigan International Speedway does. Fontana is very similar, kind of a same pit wall scenario at Watkins Glen, but it is very rare to see somebody get into an accident like that. And tough break for the driver who came into tonight, 14 points out of a transfer position. That's not going to do it. So first caution to flag, drivers down pit road with 25 laps now complete from MIS, and they're led by the 15.
Zach Novak has dominated the first 25 laps of this one, and we'll see if he can continue to do so and try to go for that 2nd consecutive win in this NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series. Jake Sturgis drives through pit road by the looks of it. He's going to be the first one off of the pit lane. Novak looking good, going to take 4 tires on that race car, and it looks like he will be the 3rd off pit road behind Sturgis. And I think there was one more in front of him. Was that Adam Gilliland?
And the 8 car beat those drivers off. I don't think the 8 made a stop. I'll have to go back and confirm. Gilliland did beat him off of the pit road, but I don't think the 6 made an attempt to stop, so that would mean that he'll try to come back down at the 1 to go, take on tires, and drop to the back. But the call for everybody up front is for fresh tires, at least for the lengths of Novak and everybody else. Conti does leapfrog a position. The 5 is going to be the 2nd driver off of pit road on that strategy call. and the 41 of Jake Sturgis, as noted as well, missed his box. So the 41 and the 8 are going to have to come back down pit road. Your race leader is going to remain the 15, Cam, but I am not surprised that drivers wanted to go with 4 tires, because for those who joined us here on RaceSpotTV 1 year ago in thrilling fashion, at the end of this race, it was Ray Alfala on fresh tires to steal the win in the final quarter of this race, courtesy of having gone with tires. So looks like that trend is going to continue here tonight. Everybody up front on the same strategy after a 20-plus lap run.
Yeah, it was 23 laps in total on the green flag run. We were almost starting to peak into wondering when some of these guys might diverging into strategies. We would always presume, these guys run the fuel tanks to empty or the tires to the tread, and then come in if they were doing green flag stops. But we typically see in the Peak Antifreeze Series here, these guys trying all sorts of different strategies. Most of them work, some of them don't. But either way, though, this is an easy strategy. Come in, get your 4 tires, and get ready to rock and roll here at Michigan one more time.
Get lights out on top of the pace car. We get set to get going. I mentioned Ray Alfala. I talked about some of your other previous race winners here in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series from Michigan International Speedway. Ray Alfala does have 2 trips to victory lane at this racetrack. He's not with us this evening, but not only won last year, but also won back in 2013. Kenny Humpy won in 2015. Chad Lawton in 2014. So this is the 5th year in which this is a 125-lap race. For the first 3 years it was on the calendar, it was only 100 laps, and those ones were won by Jason Karlavich in 2012, Steve Sheehan in 2011, and Derek Wood in 2010. Zach Novak would like to add his name to that list. He will maintain the run out front. Let's see what Conti can do, though, in that number 5. It should be side by side with him. Not going to be sitting at that what was about a 1.5 seconds of a deficit by the time the caution came out, and we get everybody doubled back up with 41 drivers still being scored on the lead lap. 27 laps going to be complete. A long ways to home with 98 laps to go. This time, as the iRacing.com official pace car dives down in the way, the field in the hands of the 15 Toyota. Zach Novak holds it back as we go back underway.
Close start up in front. The 27 Tobias hot on the heels of Novak. On the outside, it's Kenny Humpy on the back of the 5. And look at Dylan Duval trying to make a move. Looks to the inside of David Rattler and tries to make the position. Can't do it there going down into corner number 1. Novak will have the advantage. And then that battle we saw just before the caution. Michael Conti and Cody Bias going at it. And look at the run that Conti got off to.
Squeezes his way on the outside of the 15. The problem is he's got to force the 15 down so he can get a little bit of that rubber and lawn off of the quarter. It's not going to happen. The outside typically better off, but what an exit. But the 15 is Zach Novak. Well done to stay in front of Conti. Conti going to dive back to the outside of the racetrack. Maybe just a sliver of a nose on the outside. Looks like he will drop back in line, and Zach Novak does retain the race lead in this thing. Bias is right there, though. The 58 of Kenny Humpy is right there in 4th. All but running away with this thing as we keep it out on the top 5.
Yeah, and it looked like Michael Conti and Cody Bias had the same idea and just went, look, we're not going to get anywhere fighting in the outside. They both slotted in perfect symmetry behind that number 15 is Zach Novak. Now they're going to start working on him. Novak was able to get a pretty clean start at the start of this race, as I'm seeing action 3 wide in the back between Corey Vincent, Brian Schoenberg, and I believe that's Bobby Zelensky. Yes, it is. He's working his way on the outside as the cars are throwing themselves into one once again. But yeah, great start from Zach Novak the first time. The second time around, though, looks like Conti, Cody Bias, and Kenny Humpy are prepared. Top 4 are all in a hair's breadth.
They're equidistant between them with about a half a car length amongst each position up there. The 15 is trying to get a little bit further out in front. It is more difficult at this racetrack to pull away from the drivers behind you than it is at most other racetracks. Again, just talking about the sheer speed. This is the fastest track on the calendar, even more so than the Daytona International Speedway. Fresh tires for Michael Conti as they get back underway. 210 miles an hour the last time to corner 1. So the draft off of the 15, despite the fact that the 15 has the advantage of clean air, is allowing the 5 to stay with him.
And just behind them, you have the 27 still a part of this battle, and it looks like as they went into corner number 3, the 27 sucks up right to the 5 of Michael Conti. Couple car lengths between the top 2 as they run down the front straightaway. Just behind them, Kenny Humpy, Dylan Duval, 2 more of the teammates running in positions 4 and 5 right now, and it snakes all the way back, single file, all the way back to about a battle for position number 12 or so. Ryan Schoenberg gets the advantage on Chris Shearburn, moves up 1.
Continuing to dance positions here and there throughout the field. 41 drivers who started this race are still on track, over the exception, as we noted, is Ryan Lowe. He is the only driver to retire from this race after bringing out the opening caution flag and getting in to the inside of pit road wall. Three-way battle for the race lead continues. I know that Conti hasn't been able to get to the bumper of the 15 once Novak has cleared him, but you have to imagine anybody within 1/10 of a second of the race lead is there and is a part of this. All it takes is the 15 to miss the entry a little bit, and that peak forward would be all over him. Bias still on the 5. It looks like Kenny Humphrey starts to fade a little bit from the top 3 breakaway.
Yeah, and I'd have to say here, looking at the lap times in the initial stint, obviously Zach Novak's fastest lap was the second lap of the race with a 36.1. He's running a little bit behind that right now with 36.5s just after a couple of laps on these tires. I think, though, Zach Novak's kit is pretty much set up for these long distance runs because he seemed to be able to pull lap after lap away. He almost pulled 1 full tenth away as there's one car on the inside of pit exit lane. That's Kyle Putz. He's going to go a full lap down carrying a little bit of damage, as I also see Josh Berry going into pit lane carrying a little bit of damage. Not sure what happened there.
I would have to imagine that those two drivers got together at some point. Can't confirm that, but Josh Berry is missing the entire front end of his Blue Death machine, and that damage came on the restart. It was a very slow restart, and in part because of that, Conti was able to get such a good jump to him on the outside of the front row. I guess that caused some checking up back in the pack, and Berry, who was way back in about 40th position, got hard into the driver in front of him, and that car's down pit road for service.
A tough break for them as we continue to work under the green flag on lap number 35. Logan Clampett going to move up 1 more spot, and looks like Matt Busa wants it back. He tries to crossover down the back straightaway, has the run to the inside. I don't think he's going to have the head of steam to make the position back, and as they battle, they close in on Dylan Duval at position number 5. They come up off the corner. Logan Clampett will succeed to position number 6, and we'll look at Dylan Duval. Clampett coming through the field, and with Ryan Lowe having his issues, Evan, Logan Clampett can breathe a little bit easier. Yes, technically, Matt Busa, Dylan Duval, those two that he's battling with right now, with the drop race, could theoretically make their way into the chase, but they're 33 and 34 points back with the drop included. So Logan Clampett right now can breathe a little bit easier compared to when he could when Ryan Lowe was still in this race. So we're seeing him, looks like making some bold moves as David Rattler makes one of himself. He's going to put one up on Busa. Busa gets into him off of corner number 4.
And for the 44th, the objective into tonight was not to come in here and hope that the guys behind you rack out. He would have been able to defend that position easily. Again, as I noted earlier, just stay inside of the top 10 and get a good finish out of it. But in the official point standings as of now, before we factor in the drops, we noted it was a 14-point difference between Clampett and Lowe. With Lowe out of the equation, it immediately jumps to 26. Then you talk about the drops, it's even more so. So for the 44 machine, you have to wonder just how aggressive are you with the drivers around you as Rattler and Busa continue to fight. The 34 going to slot up over the nose that time, but at turn number 4, it's clear, and he will get that position.
Yeah, and just talking about Clampett, we did see him go 3 wide earlier on, so no surprise there if he's going to continue. At least pressing towards the front as Michael Conti seems to have closed up on Zach Novak these last couple of laps. Cody Bias and Kenny Humphrey is still there. It's still these top 4 cars with that little bit of gap. I'm surprised Dylan Duval hasn't been able to pull close. But either way, it's Duval, Clampett, and then Busa as well as Rattler. Rattler, not exactly the start to this race, Evan. I think he wanted to have I think he might have wanted to be the car up front leading right now. Started in second. He fell way back at the start of this thing.
Yeah, sharp contrast to Conti, who restarted in second and maintained second. Rattler fell back to, it was either 8th or 9th position before he finally got back single file in line. He's 8th position now, so he hasn't lost any more spots, but you can lose 7 positions on a restart, and you can work for the next 122 laps of this race and just not get them back. It's so difficult to go forwards, ever so easy to make a mistake and to go backwards. But I'm impressed with this battle amongst the top 4. Humpy, 5 laps ago, looked like he was falling off. Now he's right back up at the 27, and Conti is looking for the race lead. Looks to the inside, looks to the outside. Novak, defensive line to corner number 1. These drivers are really taking advantage of having that caution and subsequent restart and not letting Zach Novak get away like he did before.
Yeah, the 5 of Michael Conti spoke with that team a little bit earlier. He and the 55 of Ryan Schoenberg working together this season, and they were really confident in their race cars. They're looking at a top 5 finish, especially if this race goes green like it has on the first 2 runs. Michael Conti loves his car, especially on the longer runs. Zach Novak in car number 15, though, has had a boatload of momentum the last couple of weeks, won our most recent round, and is looking good here. And oh, by the way, with Ryan Lowe having his issues, it all but pretty much locks in Zach Novak and Corey Vincent. With the way the drops factor out, Evan, it's not a complete lock, but it's pretty darn close to seeing them in the playoffs. And if Novak can win here tonight, 3 extra points going into that next round.
There is no win you're in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, but as you said, for each trip to victory lane, you get a little bit of bonus points going into the opening round of the championship. After everybody gets reset to 2,000 points, you are given 3 points for each win. That could be big because the first round of the playoffs is 3 races in distance, and it could come down to that difference. Side by side for the race lead now at lap number 42. Zach Novak has controlled all the way under green. That will change. New race leader Michael Conti clears him in the corner. The 15 with a run, thinking about the inside, but he will pull up to the back end as the 5 of Conti completes the pass for the race lead.
Yeah, an asphalt slide job, basically, because it looked like Novak had a great exit, but he had to park it behind that Ford Fusion number 5. And Michael Conti will take the lead, and that will maybe perhaps allow Cody Bias and Kenny Huppy some breathing room to catch in as these guys start fighting. But it's Toyota versus Ford at the front of this field, with Chevrolet covering third. So all 3 manufacturers working hard. And there goes Cody Bias. He's late into corner number 1, perhaps onto the inside of Zach Novak. But Novak, he is very, very quick at this track. Obviously, seeing as he had such a great lead at the first stint here. But either way, Michael Conti, he's your new leader. And looks like things are heating up because the rest of the field seems to have caught up to these front 4 cars.
And Novak just grazed the outside fence when he went into turn number 1 when he was side by side with Michael Conti. So you have to think that might have helped out the 5 a little bit in executing that pass. But as I said, when they came at a 2, the 15 went right to the bumper, and he did the same thing at a turn 4 the next time by. So Michael Conti over the radio letting the 15 know that, hey, doesn't help anybody out if you keep running into me. So Conti taking exception to that. Novak has been able to maintain second. The 5's not getting away from him. And Bias is only a car length back, but hasn't gotten close enough to make a challenge for that position. The 15 and the 5 going at it, a little bit spirited in the battle for the top spot. As you see him get right to the bumper once more, he will look to the inside and dive down. So we'll go side by side once again. Just 3 laps after Conti completed the first pass for the race lead under green flag conditions. Novak aims to take it back. He is clear on the inside.
And if the hole is open long enough, Cody Bias will look to the inside as well. Got a great run off corner number 2. Nowhere to put it, though. And Zach Novak got that run off corner number 4, swept to the inside, was able to take that lead with the little bit of momentum that he had. Now Cody Bias gets a run down the back straightaway, sucks up to the drop to the 5, goes to the inside, but he's going to lose a little bit of that run and slide up the racetrack a little bit, get a little bit free off corner number 4, and now his teammate Humpy will move to the outside. So the teammates battling with the Simcraft cars, and it'll be Kenny Humpy moving to position number 3 on the outside. We'll see if Cody Bias can get back to the inside. Meanwhile, in front of them, Conti takes a little peek again at car number 15 of Novak.
Looks like the 58, while side by side with the 27, is going to be able to clear Bias that time at a 2. In fact, the 27 got a little bit loose once more. That was a perfect example of, Cam, what we were talking about a little bit earlier on, where if you lose the car on the quarter exit, you got to roll out of the gas. It really hurts you because the straightaways are so long. There was really nothing Bias could have done to prevent Humpy from passing him on the outside the last time by.
No, I think what we've seen these last couple of laps now, we're almost 50 laps into this 125-lap race, and it really helps with these green flag laps that we've been running here that the track is rubbering in. The asphalt is picking up that rubber, and the groove seems to, at the very least, becoming multi-grooved. Something that we're used to seeing here in Michigan. Takes a little bit to get there, but you know what? I think we're pretty happy to see just how different these lines, these drivers are taking. Even the top 4, you would think the fastest guys perhaps are all dialed into what would be considered the fastest line around this race circuit, but you know, it changes lap on lap with how the heat goes, or how the rubber goes, or how the tire wear is going. Lap times are dipping into the 38-second marks. When they started, they were running 36.4s. Now they're running 38.1s, so the lap times are falling off.
And I know that we've been talking about this battle up front this entire time, but it's a good fight. Do want to note there's a lot going on throughout the pack. A battle for 12th. You got Shearburn in the number 35, just was able to get in front of the likes of Johnson. You got Posocco side by side with Nick Ottinger and company. That's 4 seconds off of the top spot. But again, the race leader is still unable to get away from this. And I mentioned that Zach Novak had led this race all the way through under green flag conditions. He did not lead every lap until the 5 passed him, because we saw those 2 drivers drive through the pit lane. So subsequently, that is not what the statistics will end up showing. But at the end of the evening, Conti was up there. I think he was able to lead 2, if not 3 of those laps before the 15 jumped back in front. It will go side by side for second. The 27 Bias will retake 3rd position from his teammate. It did cost both of those cars some time to the 2 in front of him.
And it might not be done. Look at the run the 58 of Kenny Humpy gets through the corner. He's going to try to get up to the 27. Don't think he can do it off corner number 4, but those 2 Simcraft cars putting on a little show for position number 3 at this point. And you mentioned the fact that Conti was out in front for a few laps and got a bonus point. We keep talking about the battle for 8th and the battle for the playoffs, and that's kind of decided here going into those final few. But when you look at the top 20 going down to the end of the season to lock yourself into this series next year, Evan, it's far from over, and Michael Conti currently sits 13th in the standings with that drop race factored in. And you never know what could happen. That 1 bonus point can be the difference of Conti staying in this series for next year, or maybe finding himself on the outside looking in.
And that's something that's going to become a topic of conversation more in 2 weeks' time. We'll shift the focus on the championship discussions to the top 8 exclusively, and everybody else from there on down is going to want to try to maintain the top 20 so they do not have to go through the 2017-2018 NASCAR iRacing Pro Series to re-qualify for this championship, which would make things a little bit more difficult. And as we said a couple of times tonight, and we'll let you know much more about as the evening works on, Cam, the playoffs start in 2 weeks' time. First time ever at this top level of iRacing's Oval Series. And you're going to see that a mistake by Novak, though, as we look up front. He got way loose at a turn number 4, and that mistake is going to put Michael Conti to the race lead in the blink of an eye. And here comes Cody Bias to make a pass for second. Critical error by the 15.
Yeah, but you know what, though? He managed to save it. He wrangled the car coming off of the exit, kept it in line, got it straightened out, and he has only lost 2 positions. He is not going to end his night. He's not going to bring out a caution and wreck it, so it would be considered a racing mistake, but my goodness, was that a save to keep him in the fight for the race lead at some point, because he is right now dueling with Kenny Humpy. But yes, in a couple of weeks' time, going to Darlington Raceway for 183 laps. I missed last season's Darlington, and I was so bummed out for it. I know that these guys break out the old paint schemes that they managed to find, and I know that it is always a good race down at Darlington. But yeah, August 29th for that, the beginning round, 3 rounds of that playoff, and then of course the 4 guys at the end of it will duel at Homestead, and that will of course be as exciting as ever, as here comes Kenny Humpy on the inside of Zach Novak.
Challenges back to the bottom of the racetrack. The 58 slides high to turn number 4. Second time we've seen somebody make that move. He'll get the spot, but Novak could cross him over, go down to that very small apron on the front straightaway. Novak is going to be clear by the time they get back to turn number 1. 58 way up top side, just not going to be able to find the grip up there. Might get a good run off of the corner to challenge back into 15. Looks like Novak was able to clear by just a little bit too much, and he will successfully defend 3rd position. Cody Bias, though, is only about 15 feet away from leading this race for the first time tonight. Both he and Conti way up the racetrack at a corner, and they're headed to pit road. Cody Bias is going to drop off, and he'll kick off. Green flag pit stops, short pitting from 2nd.
Meanwhile, the 58 of Kenny Humpy putting relentless pressure on the 15 of Zach Novak for what is now position number 2. It almost looked like they were so far down on the inside that Kenny Humpy was going to follow his teammate down onto pit road, but it didn't happen. The 58 of Humpy now continues to put the pressure on the 15 of Zach Novak. Michael Conti is out by about 5 lengths, and we've seen this before. When these leaders start to pit, it seems like it forces everybody else's hand. We should see Michael Conti down on pit road this time by as they work at a corner number 4. The 5 car comes up the racetrack a little bit and back down onto pit road. 5 car will come down. The 58 of Kenny Humpy will do so as well. Should leave Zach Novak on the racetrack, and he'll lead lap number 56.
And that looked like Kenny Humpy sped coming onto the pit lane. I'm not sure he was able to get it down to speed in time. He really locked him up, and he is probably going to be hit with a penalty. But Conti and these guys, they have to come down pit road. Cam, you were talking about it a little bit ago. These drivers nearly 1.8 seconds of fall off from fresh tires to old tires, so for every lap and Michael Conti would have stayed out on track after the driver behind him pitted, he'd be giving up nearly 2 seconds a lap. You stay out 5 laps, that's almost 10 seconds.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I have to say, Kenny Humpy on the speed gun, 70 miles an hour across that yellow commitment cone into pit lane. So I would imagine penalty incoming. That is going to be massive, as there's a big conflagration of cars going through corner number 1 right now, led by Logan Clanton. Cars going all sorts of different directions. Would imagine that Blake Reynolds must certainly be on new tires because he's cleaving his way through the cars here. So is Derek Bordeaux. And I think this is what we're going to see here, Evan, is that these cars on new tires will cleave through any fans of endurance racing out there. Now is going to be your treat because the cars on new tires are in a class all their own. They're like the prototype cars driving around these GT cars. The cars are trying to scramble to get onto pit road while it's trying to allow these fast 4-tired new cars to get on through, which always presents a danger and an interesting thing to watch.
And you got to be careful getting onto the pit lane too. When we watched Conti come down, a lot of that was up on the racing surface, and as he made his move down to the inside to slow down. So you got to watch getting on the brakes in front of each other. Drivers have to get up on the radio, let the drivers know around them, I am coming down pit road, and to not catch them off guard. Zach Novak, though, in that number 15 machine, after losing the race lead, has stayed out for quite some time. He is just now going to pit at lap number 58, give it the race lead to Matt Busa, who assumes the top spot now.
Yeah, Matt Busa will drive it down into corner number 1. The 09 of David Rattler will be right behind him as well. I'm kind of surprised Zach Novak waited so long to come down onto pit road with spending a couple more laps out on those old tires. But then again, you have Matt Busa and David Rattler, for the most part, have been in the top 10 all night long, and now they are still out as the 74 of Taylor Hurst will come off pit road, as will Logan Clampen. Might make it a little bit difficult for Matt Busa to come down pit road this time, even if he was planning it. 34 car now has the inside line clear, the 09 of Rattler. They'll also stay out on the racetrack this time by. They'll complete 59 on the racing surface.
Mentioned that we might have seen Humpy speed onto the pit lane. He spent a lot of time in the box, which may imply that he did have a 10 or a 15-second penalty or so, but we also saw Cody Bias spend a lot of time in the box as well. So if he was hit with a similar penalty of shorts, that could really hurt the strategy in which he was trying to play, which I felt was the right call, making that short pit, if you would, and really forcing he has caused everybody else to subsequently come down to the pit lane. Michael Conti in the number 5 right now is running in 11th position, and I believe leads the charge of drivers who have completed their pit service. The idea for the drivers staying out, hope to catch a caution because tires are important. Everybody would come down pit road once more, even those who have already pitted. Look at the speed difference at the 34. He's your race leader. He's getting passed like it's nothing by Nolan Scott, who started this race in 36th position. That's the difference on tires. Look at the 3 wide down the back as the 35 of Shearburn tries to work around the drivers on old tires as well.
My goodness, if only these cars had to have flashing headlights, they'd be able to work their way through. Will Cooley, he had to disengage and goes way up the track because he almost found himself into the rear of Matt Busa. Matt Busa almost loses the rear once, loses the rear twice. He manages to collect the car, and everything is all in well and good again in the realm. There's a couple of cars still trying to work their way onto pit lane. I almost think some of these guys are trying to get into pit lane, but they just can't get down because so many cars are passing them that it's just hard to move your way through onto an inside line. Matt Busa will now do as such, as he's your current race leader. But you know what? 25 seconds behind is going to be Michael Conti, so he is going to be sending himself well to the back. I did see, it looked to me, only a couple of cars managed to get under the 13-second. Alex Bergeron was one of them. Letterello was one of them. Is also Zach Novak as well as Nick Ottinger going into the 13-second pit stop. So expect those guys to have gained a couple positions. But either way, though, Matt Busa, he's just staying out. I think at this point, though, he's committed. He's trying to see if we can get that caution.
If you want to follow along through this cycle with live scoring and telemetry, you can go to RaceSpotTV/timing. On that note, Busa was 7th before the pit stop cycle began, and for somebody to stay out this long, as now Conti is up to 3rd, only waiting on the 34 and the 4 to pit. Timmy Hill, the only driver in addition to Busa, at least still in front of Conti, who is yet to come down to the pit lane. The only people who I would figure to take this strategy, Tim, would be guys a little bit further back of the pack, outside of the top 20, like a Timmy Hill. Because if the strategy doesn't work out, you're going to fall back right to exactly where you were. If Busa doesn't get a yellow and has to pit, sure, he'll have better tires on the next run, but he's going to be way further back than 7th.
Yeah, I agree with you too. David Rattler was on that same strategy, or at least it looked like. And for a couple laps, they couldn't get down onto pit road, Evan. Everybody was working on the inside. They were on the outside, and by the time they came around turn 4, they couldn't make that sharp left-hand turn down onto pit road. The 34 of Busa will stay out again. One more lap. He'll complete lap number 64 on the racetrack. I agree with you. That's maybe why we're sitting up here compared to being on the racetrack or on those pit boxes. Busa was in the top 10 when this cycle of pit stops started. So he had a good race car, but maybe he knows something that we don't, or maybe he thinks this race is going to play out a little bit different than what we think up here. The 34 of Busa still works down the back straightaway. The 4 car of Timmy Hill also on the race surface as well. And as you mentioned, those are the only 2 that Michael Conti has not passed yet to get back to the lead position. 34 Busa this time by. It looks like he will come down onto pit road here, surrender the lead, and at lap number 65, just past the halfway point as he slides it to the line, he'll come down onto pit road and he'll surrender the lead.
He pits at lap number 65, coming to lap 66. That's exactly 10 laps after what Michael Conti did. So if he's trying to play a completely different fuel game entirely, if you get 10 per cycle, he's going to have to hope that there's a handful of pit stops still left in this game now past the halfway point for that to be worth it. I think you'd have to go through at least 3 cycles to make up 30 laps at a complete run to shorten yourself out of a pit stop entirely. But we have seen fuel strategy work in this series many a time in the past, and Tim's exactly right. That's why we're up here trying to break it down and not on top of the pit box for these teams making the call. So now Timmy Hill becomes the race leader, Cam. He's still again waiting to come down to the pit lane, and he likes to tend to top off 1 lap right before the restarts to come down, get fuel, go to the back. So he probably has the most fuel out of anybody to stretch it as far as possibly, but even though he hasn't pitted, Michael Conti is going to get him in a lap or 2.
Yeah, 41 laps he has been out here at Michigan, and I have to say, it is interesting to see. I think what ended up happening is that this strategy we saw last year that this type of strategy ended up coming into play. The laps are just ticking away so quickly here at Michigan that that 1 yellow was just enough to disturb the balance early on, because that fuel strategy, that long run of fuel strategy, I just don't really see it coming into play and working. I think tires are always going to be the one that's going to win the day, as Michael Conti, he's closing in. He's only a couple of seconds back behind Timmy Hill. He'll manage to catch up the lap times. It's 37.4 for Michael Conti. It's 39.4 for Timmy Hill that last time by.
2 seconds faster, exactly 2 seconds behind him at the start-finish line. Maybe Hill just waiting until Conti gets up to him, and then it will be at that point at which he does decide to come down to the pit lane, launch it on the inside, and that's exactly what he's going to do. So Timmy Hill's going to come to the pit lane, and Michael Conti is going to go back to the race lead, completing our cycle of green flag pit service.
So Michael Conti will lead by about 2 seconds or so. Dylan Duval has scored in position number 2. And he was up there in the top 5 battling with the team teammates a little bit earlier, and they had a little bit of trouble down on pit road. So it looks like he's sitting pretty right now in position number 2, albeit outside of the playoff contention. Had a couple of rough weeks, including back at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Tough break for him there, but Brian Schoenberg in position number 3. There's another driver that's trying to get up into that top 20 bubble to lock himself into the series next year. Sits in 3rd, but he has company, because here comes Zach Novak off of corner number 4. Novak looks to the inside of the double nickel, and they'll dance down into corner number 1 for position number 3.
An update on Busa, by the way, that car has gone behind the wall. He is now out of this race as Novak, fresh tires, is going to walk his way back up and get by the 55. So we've completed a cycle of the green flag service, and before we hit the next one, let's take this opportunity to take a look at our iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the leading online racing simulation developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service. iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the globe. And in the fast-paced world of esports, iRacing is a one-stop shop for online racing with officially sanctioned series by the likes of NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, and more. At lap number 71, Michael Conti is your race leader, working 2.3 seconds in front of Dylan Duval. Zach Novak, fresh tires, 4 seconds back. Keep an eye on him to see if staying out longer to have the tire advantage later will work out as he works at that deficit. He just passed Brian Schoenberg, who's in 4th at the racetrack right now, and Logan Clampett is 5th. Nick Ottinger, though, the 05. In this cycle of pit service, starting this race at 40th. He's up to 6th position. Taylor Hirsch just behind him in 7th, with Blake Reynolds at 8th. Derek Bordeaux in 9th, and Jimmy Mullis rounding out your top 10.
Andrew Thash III is running in your 11th position after starting in 14th. He seems to be performing very well here at Michigan. Corey Vincent, he is running in 12th position. As Bobby Zelensky, well, he's your points leader right now, but he started in 11th. He's down to 13th. Conservative run for the 83. He seems to be working on the inside of Corey Vincent right now, but you know what? He just wants to keep the ship nice and steady. Chris Shearburn, he's in 14th position. Chris Overland will be in the 15th position. Christian Chalier will be in 16th. After 72 laps, Brandon Schmidt in 17th, Michael J. Johnson 18th, David Rattler. Well, he's not the day he wanted. He started in 2nd. Well, he's back down to 19th. Perhaps his set was for caution flag running, but just not in the cards today. Nolan Scott, he rounds out your top 20.
And it's about to be Casey Tucker, because Tucker is a part of this little battle here, and it seems like there's a hornet's nest surrounding around the top 20 bubble. Casey Tucker will move into 20th. Nolan Scott will move back into 21st, and it might be 22nd because here comes Marcus Richardson to the inside looking to pick up that 21st place position. Joe Letteriello a part of the battle as well. He sits back in position number 23. Cody Bias scored in position number 24, but he's about to be passed by Alex Bergeron. They battle side by side for P24. 26 is Adam Gilliland all by himself on the racetrack right now, being chased down by Kenny Humpy. Jake Nichols, who had a team change this week, he's now a part of the Thrillspill. He runs in position 28. Byron Daly in 29th, all by himself, and about 3/10 or so behind is Chandler Krizik battling for 30th.
The fights don't stop there. 31st position, Mitchell Hunt in a fight with Philip Diaz just behind him, who runs in 32nd. Will Cooley is 33rd, with Brad Davies in 34th, and Jake Sturgis in 35th position is the final driver on the lead lap. One lap down at 36th position is Timmy Hill. 37th is Brian Blackford. Tyler Hill, 38th, and Kyle Butts, 39th. Are all the drivers one lap down, and again, we just told you, question didn't call for Busa, and Busa has brought that car behind the wall. His night is done. He'll end up the 40th place result. Josh Berry is also recently retired from this race. We noted he had front-end damage and was on the pit lane the last time we checked in with him. He's going to end this race at 41st, and of course, Ryan Lowe, involved in an accident earlier, rounds out your field at the back in 42nd. That's been a look at your iRacing Midway Race Break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, you can visit iRacing.com and sign up today for a limited time. If you go to iRacing.com/World of Outlaws, you can take advantage of some exclusive promo codes. If you've been thinking about becoming an iRacing member, now's the time to do it. You can get a 3-month iRacing membership for less than $5, or if you're ready to get your sim racing career started, you can go with a 1-year subscription for over 50% off the sticker prices. Again, those are available to new iRacing members only, and you can find more information out at iRacing.com/World of Outlaws. Continuing to watch these drivers work through recently, Zach Novak has been able to move his way into 2nd position on the better tires, about 0.2 quicker per lap to Conti, to see if he can close down to him.
Yeah, and the lap difference is Zach Novak's running 18-lap old tires. Michael Conti is running 21-lap old tires. So it should be just enough to warrant Zach Novak to be able to close that gap, though it does almost look quite insurmountable. It is closing at about a rate of 0.2 per lap. Michael Conti 38.2 that last time by, and Zach Novak a 38 flat, so still 0.2 coming off every single lap. And when you're only 2 seconds behind, well, it's only a matter of time before you start sniffing that draft here at Michigan to start getting reeled on in. But the track developing as always. The rubber is getting placed down onto these corners. This bright asphalt is now turned to that darker shade of gray where the rubber has come in. You can actually start to see perhaps where a little bit of the ruts are, where the rubber is getting placed a little bit more than the other parts of the racing surface. But for this duel between Michael Conti and Zach Novak, as far as the hot laps go, it is still going into Zach Novak's favor by a landslide, 0.3 that last time by.
And this is the tricky part when it comes down to the final pit stop, Tim, is timing this. If the race were to end on this lap, X amount of laps off for the pit stops, Michael Conti's decision to pit right after the driver behind him did would be the winning strategy. But if the end of this race is in 10 laps more from now and maybe, 30, 35 laps off for the pit stop, that maybe Zach Novak's strategy has some credibility. You stay out a little bit longer. He did lose some time. He was about 8 seconds off of the race lead once he did finally get tires because he stayed out for a couple of extra laps on the old tires, fell back a bit. But therefore, when he got out on track, his tires were fresher than those in front of him. They are still a little bit fresher than Michael Conti. I don't know if he's going to be able to get to him because the gap has gone consistently from being 0.2 quicker a lap to 0.1 quicker a lap. But the 42 gains a spot in this, so there is some validity to that strategy call.
There's a couple of great strategy calls here throughout this field, and two drivers I'd look back at right now are sitting in position 7 and 8. Before that battle for the lead heats up, let's look at Ottinger and Fayash. There's two drivers that we haven't really spoke about all night long. They started at opposite ends of the field. Ottinger started in 40th, Fayash started in 14th. They're both a net gain right now. Obviously, Ottinger has gained a few more spots than Fayash has, but now they're battling for position number 7, and it's two names we really haven't called a whole lot this evening. Ottinger looking for a win here, and there's another driver that's on that bubble for the top 20. When you include the drop, he sits in position number 20 in the standings, and as they battle, looks like we got one on new tires and possibly two on new tires. Pit stops possibly beginning here because Bordeaux's flying through, as is Blake Reynolds in the 66, and a couple more making their way through. Corey Vincent in the 10 closing in on this little battle. So it looks like the second round of stops may have started already.
Yeah, those drivers, 32nd, 33rd, and 34th, all one lap down. So you lose a lap by short pitted, which is another gamble. Maybe not necessarily, for the drivers up front. Michigan, I think, a big enough racetrack, you might be able to, if you do fall off at the lead lap, get that back rather quickly. But Michael Conti, race leader, is halfway down the back straightaway. Derek Bordeaux trying to unlap himself is in turn number 2. So takes a little bit more time to get yourself off of the one lap down group. If the caution comes out in that period, you're stuck a lap down. And if you want to get back to the lead lap, you have to hope that everybody in front of you stays out. You take the wave by, then you're at a tire disadvantage, and the gamble just does not pay out. So again, some drivers like to stay out on a long run to hope the yellow can benefit them. Typically, short pit is the call to go with, but it puts you at a risk. We've only had one caution so far tonight through 83 laps.
Speaking of risks, fast cars all around. Derek Bordeaux on the inside, Blake Reynolds on the outside, and they have surpassed Logan Clampett and Dylan Duval, who they themselves are fighting for the third position on the racing track. Dylan Duval countering on the inside. Here comes Corey Vincent, making it 3 wide on his brand new sticker Goodyears, as we're starting to see that multi-class atmosphere happen once again. Logan Clampett securing his position, riding the outside line near the wall. He gets the position over Dylan Duval. And either way, though, Evan, these pit stops are coming, and I'm seeing all the way back down to it'll be the 27th position of Jake Sturgis is the first car I see that has taken 3 pit stops.
And I can't remember the name who came over the radio first, but somebody was running in 12th position like 5 laps ago and said, hey, I'm coming down pit road. That's about 10 seconds off of the race lead. So the likes of Conti and Novak aren't going to respond to that like they did on the first cycle of pit stops, green flag pit stops that is, in which a driver from the top 5 pitted, and obviously they had to get back down to the pit lane ASAP. Here's where they've sit up front now as we get into close it on pit stops again for the race leader. Zach Novak is still quicker, 1/10 of a second per lap, and Michael Conti slow to turn 2 with the drivers on fresh tires coming on by. Novak may just get to the 5 before they hit pit stops. In fact, the 5 of Conti might do exactly what Timmy Hill did. Hill pitted as soon as Conti caught up to him. Maybe that's what the 5 is planning on as well.
So Conti leads this thing, but Novak right behind him, as you mentioned, in position number 2 as those lap cars make the pass. Corey Vincent now in between your 2 leaders. The 10 car has made some bold moves on these new tires, and he'll close in on the 5 of Michael Conti, and Novak will try to get in that slipstream as well before these pit stops begin. Great race here so far. 86 laps completed, or will be completed at the stripe, and we've only had 1 caution so far this evening, so an excellent race here at the Michigan International Speedway. And we have some comers and goers, as we mentioned, throughout this field, and I think this second round of pit stops, I think it's going to shake it up a little bit more as well, as Michael Conti works through corners number 3 and 4. Novak closing right in. He's to about 4 car lengths from the lead position as they come out of corner number 4, 15 with another great move.
Question is when do we commit to coming down to the pit lane? One of these runs is going to have to be longer than the other ones. The last time by, as Novak that last time picked up 0.3 of a second alone. But a couple of laps ago now, as we work lap number 87, 40 laps to go in this race. We're now inside of 40 laps to go. That would be a long run to the end. So the drivers who have already pitted, I'm not sure they are inside of the window yet. If they are, it's going to be right on the number to get to the end of this thing. Maybe that's why we're seeing Conti resist pitting to this point, is because he's not at his number yet. Maybe he wants to get closer to 35 or 30 to go, but if he waits for any of those numbers, I think Novak will be by him. He's on the back bumper, and we're about to see a battle for the race lead at lap 88.
Yeah, it was 2.1 seconds not that long ago. Now it is just 0.1 second. And Zach Novak has been reeling him in. Novak has really had Michigan's number here. Obviously starting on the pole, but he still has the fastest lap time posted with a 36.1. Obviously that was a long time ago because we have been running 38s for some time now. They're getting well out of the throttles, dipping into the 170s. Going through the corner, Zach Novak having to get out just a little bit on the exit of corner 4. It's always a bit tricky when you got cars running around you, but either way, we'll see when these guys decide when to come into pits. We did see a car go up to about 42 laps, and that was Timmy Hill, so you can go about 42 laps on a stint length. I think the fuel might be able to push you a little further, but it's reasonable to expect a 40-lap stint, but I think that these guys, they want to get more to about 30 to go to really kind of open up the window just in case anything happens or develops. As Novak goes well to the inside, Michael Conti sticks way onto the high side, and we're getting to that Michigan International Speedway we love. And here comes Zach Novak coming into pit lane.
He finally makes the call. He wasn't able to get around Conti. Conti's spirited battle at a turn 4 to hold him off, and now the roles are reversed. Instead of Novak being the driver to stay out and get the better tires on the long run, the strategy that his run on this stint has really warmed me up to, he's going to short pit Conti. So for the second time tonight, the driver of the number 5 machine is going to be short pitted, but the driver running behind him in second position. They were so close that a Conti may come out of the pit lane in second position. We will see if the 5 responds this time by, and he will. He's going to slow down, and now everybody coming over the radio and saying, hey, we're coming down pit road. It's going to put Logan Clampett to the race lead in the meantime.
Yeah, Conti almost had to come down pit road that time by forcing his hand. Dylan Duval is going to come down onto pit road. Brian Schoenberg down on pit road as well. Nick Ottinger coming down for a stop, as is Chris Overland among those coming down into pit road. Taylor Hurst stays out in the racetrack. David Rattler stays out in the racetrack. Zielinski and Chalner among those on the racetrack. All behind the 44 of Logan Clampett, the JDR Graphics number 44, leading the Clamp Nation around the Michigan International Speedway. Does he stay out on this lap? He's going to go up the racetrack at a turn 4 and then dive it on down, clamp it down the pit road.
Conti's just completed its pit stop. This middle portion of your race is brought to you by Herculiner Truck Bed Liners, the official bed liner of NASCAR. Look at this in turn number 2. Conti on the inside. On the outside is Zach Novak, and just a 1-lap difference is going to give you about 10 car lengths down the back straightaway. Novak makes the call. Is it going to be a winning call? Because he had better tires and closed in on the drivers who pitted before him, Cam, because that was like a 5 or 6 lap difference. With a 1-lap difference, Conti doesn't have tires that are much better than the 15 of Novak. that 15, he may have just made a race-winning call. We'll see how it plays out, but he's certainly in perfect position right now in 19th.
Absolutely, and I will say this last lap was a 36.8, whereas Michael Conti, obviously, he's still on his out lap, so we'll see this time by his full fast speed lap as they're going to go by Brad Davies. They're going to blow by Brad Davies in the corner here. Brad Davies already off the throttle. He goes to the inside. Here comes Zach Novak on the outside. Thank you very much. Here comes Michael Conti following, and actually Brad Davies almost loses the rear. Nope, he'll keep it together, and you know what? He's going to go to the safety of pit lane. We don't want a repeat of that caution, and then now he's going to take a for a spin in pit lane.
Not what he wanted to see. He started this race at 15th position, and I think he's just about done at this point. He was running way back in the field in what was 31st position, but the time he did finally come to pit road, and a mistake on the pit lane entry, he's just going to roll it backwards into the box. Obviously, frustration, disappointment with his performance. This tells me that he has no rush to get that car straighted. The Davies is going to park it when he gets there.
Jake Sturgis is your leader. He's going to stay out and lead a lap, and going to get passed by Mitchell Hunt in the 71 on new tires. It's to note that Jake Sturgis coming into this race, when you factor in the drop, he only sits 9 points up on 21st in the championship hunt. So Jake Sturgis might not be looking for that championship per se, but he's looking to lock himself into this series for next year as he comes down onto pit road. That 1 point could be very key when it comes down to the end of the season as he comes down for service.
Would give the race lead to Derek Bordeaux, and in fact we can say we have a battle for the race lead in the middle of this pit cycle. The 04 and the 66 have yet to come down to the pit lane, this time by 30 laps to go from MIS, and the 66 Reynolds is battling Bordeaux for the race lead. So as we really await the pit cycle to cycle itself through to be complete, we get to watch a battle for the race lead that's halfway down the back straightaway.
Yeah, this battle's been going on for quite some time. We did see these guys go looped around the outside of both Logan Clampett and whom he was fighting with, whose name escapes me currently. But either way, Reynolds went all the way to high to the outside. Bordeaux went all the way down to the inside, and both of them are still right together. So I guess that just goes to show you that the track has completely opened up here on this beautiful day in Michigan. But either way, I have to say, Blake Reynolds, he has been the one that has been pursuing it, Derek Bordeaux, this entire time. Bordeaux, he's looking to at least try to have a good night. Not quite sure, obviously, how this is going to play out. Both of their tires are in the, there'll be 20 laps on these tires this next time by. And I think that's going to really, obviously not play to their benefit, but you never know. They might come down relatively soon and have newer tires at the end of it, and they could potentially call this exactly right.
Vincent just now coming out of the pit lane, so big news in a battle for what was 5th position. Michael Conti has passed Zach Novak, and he did it handily. Surprised me. I would have thought a 1 lap difference wasn't going to be enough, but Conti looking just as good with 1 lap newer tires than the 15 did with 5 lap newer tires. Conti powered on by and is now 0.8 of a second in front of Novak in a battle that is technically for 3rd and 4th position on track, but it's going to become for the race lead. Look at the 5. The 04 and the 66 have yet to pit for a second time under green. Even if they can make it the next 27 laps, none of that matters because the Peak Ford is on the outside, and Michael Conti, trying to get a win tonight from Michigan, is going to go back to the race lead at lap number 98.
Yeah, Bordeaux and the 66 of Blake Reynolds were 2 of those drivers that pitted a little bit early on this cycle to kick off the green flag pit stops, and now you're seeing them fall back a little bit here compared to where these other drivers did that have a little bit newer tires as they'll fall back behind the leaders. Timmy Hill in the 4, I believe, is on newer tires, not on the same lap. He'll make the pass on the 04 of Bordeaux and the 66 of Blake Reynolds. So once again, Michael Conti goes back to the lead. Novak is now about 0.8 of a second behind the leader. We'll see what shakes out here as we work lap number 99, coming out of corner number 2 and down the back straightaway. Interested to see where Bordeaux and Reynolds shake out in this one. I would think they're done pitting on this strategy, but we might see them down one more time. They had nothing to lose anyway, Evan, or per se. They were running in 39th and 30th when they started this race. So maybe throw a Hail Mary at it and hope for something to happen. They get a caution here. It might work. Well, never mind. The 04 down on pit road.
I was going to say, it'd be a long way for them to fall back to 39th, and so those positions are one lap down, so you figure, I guess they made the decision that they feel like they can finish higher in this race instead of just hoping to not fall back as much. Pit now, fall back, then have the fresher tires, and see what they're able to do. But that's going to take them out of the equation up near the front of the field, and now you get a clear look on the telemetry up at the front of the field. The difference between first and second, Michael Conti 9/10 of a second in front of Zach Novak. Logan Clampett, who only had to have a good night tonight. Just don't wreck the race car. He's passed 7 drivers to run in 3rd at the moment. Taylor Hurst behind him started in 13th position and runs in 4th. Dylan Duval through the top 5 right now.
Yeah, and Jimmy Mullis also came in with Blake Reynolds and Derek Bordeaux, and I just wanted to touch on them real quick because we did notice that there was a window towards the end of the race where those cars were the ones that were leading. They ended up fighting for the lead. I am so curious now. If we don't get a yellow, I need to see what happens here because they might have just called it 25 laps for these tires. It's about maybe 15 laps less than what you can get out of the life of the tires realistically, which means that everyone else will be coming in for tires as we're looking at the battle for position number 10. Cody Bias finding himself all sorts of busy, David Rattler and Bobby Zelensky. But Evan, I'm just so curious because if these guys, everyone else has to come in and do another pit stop, these guys are set to the finish. And where is that going to put them? I don't know. They are the only 3 cars that have really worked that strategy since we at the end of that yellow. I am very interested to figure out how that develops, but of course, your natural progressive race, what would you consider, run into fuel and tires, is interesting as well as Conti seems to be checking out, interestingly enough.
Continues to run away, 1.2 seconds, now basically 1.3 at the start-finish line that time around, so Zach Novak, after having a good strategy the first time around, mixed it up, kind of made an audible call, wasn't able to get around Conti, was to the bumper, but Conti powered out of 4 just a couple laps before they pitted, and the 15 said, okay, I'm coming down pit road. Thought it was a good call at the time. I agreed with it. I said, hey, 15 might have just done it there because he short-pitted Conti by a lap and got out 10 car lengths in front of him, but the 5's fast. Novak's fast, no doubt. He, in fact, was better than Conti in the warm-up session, and he qualified in front of him. But in this race, it has been that 5 of Michael Conti who has been running out in front. As we look a little bit for the back of the battle for 16th position, Alex Bergeron on the inside of Christian Challenger going to get the spot. 78 going to cross him up, and those 2 Chevrolets going to go side by side for position, 15 seconds off of the race lead.
And when you look at Challenger's points position right now as he moves to that 16th place position, he came in with a possibility of falling out of the playoff picture if something went wrong. Challenger's drop is 6 points here this season, and with the bad luck that Ryan Lowe had and with Matt Busa playing that pit strategy a little bit earlier on and having enough points on Dylan Duval, it looks like he is going to make the inaugural NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series playoffs unless something traumatic happens here in these last couple laps, Evan. But it looks like Challenger will have something to battle from. The downside to it is he doesn't have a win, so he'll have to start probably 9 points behind Ryan Luza, but anything can happen in those 3 races. But right now, Challenger just trying to sail it on home and try to pick up a playoff position. 35 is Shearburn right ahead of him, and that would be the battle for position number 15 if he can get up there. And there's Michael J. Johnson as well. Nice little 4-car battle for 14.
And that's also something that becomes interesting once we talk about the playoffs, which we're only 20 laps away from now. The final 20 laps of this race are brought to you by Blue Def, the official diesel exhaust fluid and DEF equipment of NASCAR. Is different for the regular season. Regular season points are going to determine the top 8 into the playoffs, but in the opening round, the round of 8, we will go to Darlington Raceway, as noted, throwback weekend, just as you'll see with the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. A lot of these drivers going to have throwback paint schemes on their cars and such. We'll go to Chicago and Dover. After that, the top 4 drivers will go to the final race at Homestead of Miami for a winner-take-all finale. But in that opening round of the playoff, unlike in the regular season, if you win, you are in to the championship. We'll talk more about that in 2 weeks' time, but it is going to be a different complexion once we go racing for round number 13.
Yeah, absolutely different mentality. Massive battle that we've been following along here. Christian Chalnier on the inside. He's looking to take not one, not two, but three positions, but he will not get it. Chris Yearburn looking to now take it 30 wide down the Michigan backstretch one more time here on lap 107 of 125. Also of note, as Bergeron's finding himself in this battle, Derek Bordeaux, interesting enough, just went by Michael Conti, the leader. He has unlapped himself, as well as Blake Reynolds. It means that they're only 36 and 37 seconds behind. Where will they lie at the end of this race? I don't know, probably in the middle of the pack and nothing will happen, but interestingly enough, we'll see what they can do, and they're the only ones on that odd strategy. Shearburn, though, he's finding himself at the head of the pack, because these guys are quite literally, Evan, juggling positions near nearly every single corner.
And you see that not only back there, throughout the pack, you got side by side in a battle for what equates to 26th position. Byron Daly, Jake Sturgis doing the battle. The 25 machine lap car also working amongst them. That's Will Cooley. He's somebody else who's trying to get their lap back. And quite honestly, we look back there because the guys up front seem to have this thing set in stone. David Rattler, though, is going on a late race charge inside of the top 10. We've been talking about him a lot, mostly for his going the wrong direction. That move puts him up one spot on the scoring pylon. He just passed the 55 of Brian Schoenberg for 8th and is not far back from Nick Ottinger.
And he was one of those drivers that pitted a little bit late compared to some of those drivers near the front of the field. And you look in the top 10, David Rattler is one of the faster cars in the top 10 right now, in position number 8, and working up to Nick Ottinger. He's only 2/10 off the back bumper of Ottinger, and that continues to shrink. And then there's another half second or so up to Faye Ash, and then another half second or so up to Dylan Duval. We've got 15 laps left in this race. Theoretically, if he was to continue this pace, he's probably going to get up to position number 5, and even maybe not per se at this pace, he'll probably be at the 5th place position before this thing is all said and done. But the passes will continue to get a little bit tougher as he gets a little bit closer towards the front of the field. But David Rattler is due for a great run in this NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series. He's been here for a couple of years. Yes, he's had some great runs, but really hasn't been able to close the deal, Evan. Right now, it looks like he's got one of the faster cars in the top 10. He might be able to get at least a top 10 finish where he's running, or maybe even a top 5.
Yeah, he's going to be on the 05 of Ottinger here, this time at a quarter number 2. To the bumper, car length off, maybe not the best run that he could have gotten, and I don't think the move's going to happen that time in turn 3, but if he's able to get him, Fayash is only a couple of car lengths in front, and you've got Dylan Duval right there, so he could get maybe as high as P5 if he's able to really work these tires through the next 14 laps left from Michigan. Keeping an eye, we're monitoring what's going on up front. Obviously, the interval is going across the top of your screen. It is a 1.9 second difference between race leader Michael Conti, second place runner and pole sitter Zach Novak. Logan Clampett has in fact began to close the gap in for second, not at a rate at which he'll be able to fight for that position, I don't believe, coming into this race. That one is down inside of 4 seconds for the first time.
That it is, and Logan Clampett, well, we were wondering if he was going to be conservative. You know what, that's probably in the safest place he can be right now, is that 3rd position, probably the safest he's been all night. No real cars to really worry about, no real large conflagration that could happen in front of his windscreen as the battle continues. For 5th position, though, as Dylan Duval has Andrew Fayash, whom I could have sworn crossed the pylon a little too quickly, but you know what? He managed to roll the car up just enough, and he did not get a pit road speeding penalty like we had seen a couple of cars before that last green flag pit stop. And so Fayash lived to fight another day. He's had an interesting season, that number 77, but we'll see if perhaps he can break into the top 5. He's got a lot of work to go ahead of him, though, because David Rattler, after that miserable start, seems to be coming into his own late in the race.
3 wide with Rattler on the innermost side of that. The 9 was on the outside, and that is a lap machine of Tyler Hill, who is 2 laps down. Look at the guys right on each other's door in turn 2. Do not wreck that race car if you're Rattler at a 05 of Ottinger. Really giving it to him and will not roll over and relinquish the number 7 position. He's able to defend it once more, which means that the 09 has to try to go to work to get not the best entry in 3. Maybe Ottinger is going to keep him back in 9th position. The 05 spirited in losing that spot.
And you look at those drivers that are right around that point. Yeah, we talked about David Rattler needing a good run and trying to make it happen, but Nick Ottinger's due for a good run as well, coming in 20th place when you include the drop on the bubble to make this series for next year. And then Andrew Fayash, the third in the 77, has been quietly going about his business this season, but he needs a good run as well, and he sits in position number 6 and not too far off Dylan Duval. That might be a battle for position number 5 between at least those two as we come down to the final 10 laps of this thing. Fayash closing in on Duval, and then there's a little bit of a gap up to guys like Taylor Hurst, Logan Clampett, Zach Novak, and Michael Conti, and even those within the top 4 have a little bit of breathing room and a little bit of insurance between themselves as Rattler all the way down to the apron trying to make that move on Nick Ottinger. Looks like he's going to get to the inside. The question is, can he make the move stick here and try to chase down the 77 and the 42? This is going to be a dogfight for a top 5 finish.
09 can't get the bite off at the turn, and I'll tell you what, way up against the outside fence was Ottinger. Came just about as close as you could to that wall coming out at turn number 2 without really getting into it. You would think that this battle, it would be allowing Fayash and Duval to get away, but in fact, those drivers are coming back to this battle. So even if the 09 can't get around the 05, you may still be able to fight amongst those drivers. This is soon to be a 4-way battle. I've mentioned this a couple of times tonight. So far, so good. If need be, I can knock on wood, but this is where you hold your breath. The go or go home moment in this race at a point of no return is 5 laps to go or less. If a yellow comes out with 5 laps to go or less, this race will not restart. Your race leader at the time of caution will win. There are still a small window until we get to that point in which a yellow could change this race.
Yeah, and it's not even to say a large incident or anything, just somebody losing the rears like we saw early in the race coming off of 4. It could be enough to bring out the yellow and settle this race on the yellow, which would be very unfortunate. We had such a great run. We went the only caution that we've had today came out on lap 23, and it has been green ever since. And either way, though, the battling's still going on fairly well between Nick Ottinger and David Rattler. Rattler, he was on the inside. Now he'll pull behind Nick Ottinger, that number 05 car. Both of them have been looking fairly strong. Nick Ottinger, though, you got to hand it to him. He started in 40th position. It's not bad. When you start the race, there was 1 yellow flag, and he has managed over the last 118 laps to work his way up to 7th, Evan.
Yeah, and he didn't put it down in time to qualify. We knew that he had a good car because it was 15th best at a warm-up, but you're right. A lot of the time, when we see drivers come way from the back to up front, it's because you have a lot of yellows, you have a lot of pit strategy, and not to discredit that as they go side by side once again, the guys on top of the box making those kind of calls to get their driver's track position is big in this series, but to be able to go plus 33 with only 1 yellow is impressive.
And a great battle in front of them as well. Yes, they're side by side between Ottinger and Rattler, but it looked like Andrew Fayash had a great run down into corner number 3. Couldn't do anything with it and lost a bunch of track position there. Lost about 3 lengths and continues to fall back. This battle for the position behind him, position 7, is catching him. Ottinger trying to roll the top, David Rattler trying to get to the inside, and Andrew Fayash trying to handle that race car and try to get it up to Dylan Duval, who's battling for position number 5. This is a nice little tilt, and it's going to come down right to the end of the race as Michael Conti continues to lead. Small little footnote, Evan. Zach Novak, his last win came 2 weeks ago in Indianapolis. Michael Conti's last win back in his championship season in 2014 at Watkins Glen. It's been 3 years since Michael Conti's been to victory lane in the series.
5 laps away from it inside of that point of no return as we continue to watch this 4-way battle. That's not even for second. Novak is still there comfortably. He's fallen off 2.5 seconds to Conti. Clampett is closed in. It's only a second between second and third, but I don't see that happening in the final 5 laps. Taylor Hurst is comfortably in 4th, and then the fight we've been talking about. Dylan Duval in the 42 is 5th. Andrew Fayash in the 77 is 6th. And then you have Ottinger 7th, Rattler in 8th. It is a 4-way fight with 4 laps to go this time.
Yeah, and if anything happens, David Rattler, who was just on the outside of this battle, and Brian Schoenberg and Bobby Zelensky are there to take those positions just in case. But for Dylan Duval and Andrew Fayash, top 5 obviously would be a boon to their series, but of course you also get to interview one of us finishing in the top 5. I mean, that is clearly what these guys would want to be thinking about and racing for here in the final round of the regular season of the NASCAR PEAK Antifreeze Series. But in all seriousness, though, I think these guys are racing fairly hard, Evan, but you know what? It is, I think, a little clearer with how tough these guys were racing early on in the season that they are actually racing fairly conservatively, which I can applaud here as we're winding down the laps here at Michigan.
I've been having fun watching these guys back here. Race lead seems all but determined. 2 laps to go. Popsicle 6 at next time for Michael Conti. And the 09 really sideways that time at a 2. I just can't get over how close Ottinger's getting to that outside wall, right up against it. It looks like Duval may be clear enough to be safe. Fayash has to make sure he doesn't bobble again, or the 05 is going to be on top of him. These 4 drivers may, though, stay as they are.
If Rattler gets side by side again with Nick Ottinger, though, watch Rattler's line, watch Ottinger's line. Ottinger has been pinching that 09 car just enough to try to get that run off the corner and beat that 09 down the straightaway. So if David Rattler can get up there, watch that line by Ottinger. He's going to run the defensive line. There's nothing against it, but it might be able to get him that 7th place position as Michael Conti out in front, rounding corner number 4. He'll come to the white flag this time, trying to win his first race in this series in 3 years. He's about 2 miles away.
Uncontested, take a look in front of him. There is no lap traffic until you get down to corner number 1. Clear and smooth sailing for the driver of the number 5 Ford. We continue to check in on the battle behind. Still Duval, Fayash, Ottinger, and Rattler in that order. The 09 is going to go to the inside of the Rheem Toyota one final time to try to make a move. But for Michael Conti, he came into tonight 12th in the championship standings and just outside of a fighting chance to race in this series' first ever playoff. But tonight, he gets back on the right track, and for the first time in 3 years, the Peak Ford is going to be heading to victory lane. Final time from Michigan International Speedway. Checkered flag, Michael Conti, your winner.
An outstanding effort for that number 5 team. They've only had 1 top 5 this year, 1 pole position this year. Now they can put a win on that column. Zach Novak, a great attempt, amazing car that he had, but it just wasn't there in the end. And of course, the ending battling positions, well, it actually didn't change that much. So it was Duval, Fayash, Ottinger, and then Rattler. But either way, Evan, a fantastic race here at Michigan. Only 1 caution, I gotta say. It is a good day here for the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, and we can just really point out how strong and how capable these drivers are.
Yeah, it wasn't like a race that went green all the way, but nothing happened with. We got to see drivers battling inside of the top 5 as the night went on. There was the element of pit strategy, and you got to see very clearly 5 and the 15 decided to go with 2 different calls on the final 2 pit stops. One, I think, won 1 cycle, and 5 happened to win the 2nd cycle through all of that, and the park gave it a victory lane. And I know that he's really been wanting this, and that Peak Ford has some celebrating to do. Michael Conti winning tonight from the Michigan International Speedway, and as he burns it down on the front straightaway, now is just as good as time as any to remind you that Peak is a big reason why this series is able to come to you at Peak. We're not afraid to mix it up with the big boys, and this is why we've been actively involved in motorsports for over 30 years. We identify with the straight shooters like John Force and Clint Boyer, just 2 of the truly great racers who've been a part of the Peak family throughout the years. Today, Peak still aims to shock the motorsports establishment, partly as a way to showcase the excellent and competitive quality of our family of brands, mostly because it's so much fun. You can take a look for Peak, their drivers and their teams challenging the heavy hitters in the NASCAR levels, the NHRA ranks, and the dirt late model racing, as well as tonight at Michigan. How about that? Conti doing burnouts inside of victory lane.
Yeah, it's great to see him celebrate here. His first win since Watkins Glen. First win since his championship season. Blows it up there in victory lane. So congratulations to Michael Conti. And oh, by the way, Logan Clampett finishing in 3rd. We'll see him in the playoffs. Marcus Richardson finishing in 19th. They're going to tabulate all the points, but he should be in as well. And Christian Chalner coming in. He's going to finish in position number 12. Obviously, Ryan Lowe had his issues. Matt Busa didn't get there, and Dylan Duval had a great top 5 run, but he's going to come up a little bit short. So those top 8 unofficially, Evan, that came into this evening in playoff contention, they're going to leave in playoff contention, and Ryan Luza going to lead that field when we do end up going in 2 weeks' time to our next race at Darlington to kick off the playoffs.
We'll be going trackside to get post-race reaction in just a moment. First, we will look from the top to the bottom and a look at your full race results tonight from Michigan. Michael Conti gets the way to first since 2014 over pole sitter Zach Novak, who comes home 2.7 seconds behind in the number 2 spot. Logan Clamp at a race high P3 is where he takes the checkers from, with Taylor Hurst at 4th and Dylan Duvall at 5th. We plan to chat with all of those drivers momentarily. Andrew Fayash, fantastic result. Great night overall. Started 14th, finishes 6th. But the driver of the 77 at Ottinger comes home in 7th. For the back to the front, he passed 33 drivers. He is your hard charger for this evening. David Rattler had a tough go. Started 2nd, fell to 8th by lap number 5. Didn't lose any more from there, but wasn't able to climb back up the ladder. He comes home in 8th position when it's all said and done. Brian Schoenberg with a P9 and a Bobby Zelensky rounds out our top 10.
Chris Overland will come home in the 11th position. Christian Chalner in 12th position. Chris Shearburn, he'll come home in 13th. Alex Bergeron will finish in 14th position. Cody Bias will come home in 15th. Michael J. Johnson will finish the 16th position. Adam Gill in the 17th. Kenny Humpy finishing all the way back in 18th. They're not going to be happy with that one, starting 4th and being up front at the beginning of this race, but that's just how the dice rolls sometimes. Marcus Richardson will finish in the 19th position, and Joe Letteriello will finish out your top 20.
Casey Tucker going to come home in position number 21. Jake Sturgis in 22nd. Lone Scott in 23rd. Chandler Krisick in 24th. Phil Diaz in 25th. Brandon Schmidt comes home 26th. Now there's Derek Bordeaux and Blake Reynolds. Those are the two drivers that tried the little short pitch strategy near the end of the race. They were the two fastest cars in the racetrack for the most part at the end of it, but they came home 27th and 28th respectively. Had to throw something at it to try to win this race. Jimmy Mullis finished in 29th, and Corey Vincent started off this night so well, comes home in 30th.
Final 3 drivers on the lead lap includes 31st Jake Nichols, 32nd Mitchell Hunt, and 33rd for Byron Daly. 1 lap down is 34th for Timmy Hill and 35th for Will Cooley. 2 laps down, Tyler Hill in 36th position, Brian Blackford in 37th. 3 laps down, Kyle Putz 38th. Rest of the drivers with a DNF. That's 39th Brad Davies, 40th Matt Busa, Josh Berry 41st, and the lone caution on the night, Ryan Lowe, shotgun in 42nd. So that's a look top to bottom at your RaceSpotTV full race results. We'll take a quick opportunity to step aside, and when we come back to the Irish Hills of Brooklyn, Michigan, we'll go trackside and chat with Michael Conti. He's your race winner tonight in the 12th race of this 2017 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series powered by iRacing. Post-race is next on iRacing Live.
There are 3 different paths if you want to call yourself a world champion of sim racing. NASCAR, open wheels, or endurance racing. But no matter which one you take, you can guarantee that the journey will always be tough, which few will ever complete. The iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series, the premier road racing series in sim racing, started with a new car taking center stage. Then, it was Martin Kroenke resisting any challenge thrown at him to break the 5-year stranglehold of Gregor Hutu as being world champion. These drivers and teams are not just competing for pride, they're competing for money. And with over $20,000 in prizes for each of the series up for grabs, drivers really do put it all on the line.
The NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, powered by iRacing, is the premier NASCAR eSport series featuring the cars and tracks from the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. The 2016 campaign saw a return to the top of the mountain by Ray Alfalla as a three-time Oval World Champion. The march to that championship was not easy, though, despite the fact that Ray Alfalla took home the most points in series history. It just also happened to be the tightest championship fight we had ever seen. These guys are set for the 2017 campaign.
The Blancpain GT Series hosts the top GT3 endurance teams in sim racing, with groups of 3 or more drivers sharing the wheel. This is a championship you can't win alone, and you need the same determination, passion and drive from your teammates to be successful. They often say that it takes just one mistake to lose a championship, and in team racing, it may not be your mistake that costs you the win. Last season, VRS Coanda SimSport won the championship by a single point. This year, who will step up to the plate?
These are the iRacing eSport World Championships, the pinnacle of sim racing competition. Catch it all season long with live coverage on iRacing.com/live.
We'll go back live to the Michigan International Speedway, where we now have all 12 of this season's regular season races underway and now completed, and we're set to go playoff racing next time out for the first time in the history of this NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, powered by iRacing. Happy that you're still hanging out with us on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. Evan Posocco, Cam Walsh, Tim Terry topside with you, with Hugo Luis downstairs, and Cam. A great race tonight. Only one caution flagged throughout. Pit strategy may have been the determining factor that gives Michael Conti his first win since 2014.
Absolutely my kind of night. 35 laps in total on those tires for Michael Conti, 36 laps for Zach Novak. Interesting note, though, a couple of drivers did only have 34 laps, but they didn't have the speed as that Michael Conti car and that Zach Novak car. Those guys were extraordinarily quick here at Michigan, and if anyone else won other than those two cars, I'd have to say I'd feel pretty bad, because those guys were dominant all night long.
We'll talk about the championship in just a little bit, but first, down to victory lane. Michael Conti is your winner from Michigan, and trackside with him is Tim.
It's been a long while since I've been able to do this. Michael Conti back in victory lane for the first time since this championship season. Let's talk about the pit strategy at the end. You and Zach Novak going at it. Novak comes down pit road, and 1 lap later, you end up down pit road. Whose call was that to bring this car down?
Yeah, it was crazy how that all happened. We had short pitted the run before because we didn't really put enough gas in it. So we put ourselves in a box. So we had to come down well before Zach. So the way that second to last stint was cycling out, he got back to us but didn't pass us, which I think was ultimately what got us the race. I think if he would have passed us, he would have gotten away, and I don't think we could have made up the time. But when I saw him pit, I knew that we had to follow him in that next lap, or else we were going to give up too much time. What I didn't know is how much the tires were going to matter with just the lap difference. So when we got back out, I could tell that I was going to be able to get around him. I just wanted to be smart about it and not do something foolish that would throw away a really good run. And it all worked out for the first time in 3 years. We are finally back in victory lane for Peak and Old World Industries, and everybody that's been aboard this 5-car through thick and thin, through a lot of crud the last couple of years. To be honest, we've finally gotten our hands back around this thing, and And we might not make the playoffs, but with the year that we've had and the things that have happened, I'm excited to be where I'm at this point.
We chatted a little bit earlier. You were on Twitter saying that this is a top 5 car, especially if we get some long runs. Confidence goes a long way in this series. How confident are you going forward in these next couple of rounds? Are you as confident as you were today at Michigan?
I knew after Indy that we had hit on something, because I think if things would have worked out differently at Indy, we could have won there as well. And just like in real life in the Cup Series, typically if you're good at Indy, you're pretty solid at Michigan too. Like we saw last week with Truex and Busch. I mean, they were both pretty good at Indy, and for the most part, they were solid at Michigan as well. So I knew that we had a good piece. We worked on it a lot this week. Did a lot of stuff with telemetry. Again, thanks to Brandon Hastings for doing that side of things, so I don't have to try to interpret data and drive the car. It'd be too much. So I can focus on driving thanks to him. We just put a lot of work into it. I knew that the car was going to be solid on the long runs, and that last run of the race, it was hooked up, and that was the best the car was the whole race. And that's another thing we've struggled with, getting worse as the runs go on. So we finally put it all together. We didn't shoot ourselves in the foot. We didn't get any weird cautions or anything, and we finally got another one of these things after so long. So good run to Brian as well. Good to get 2 of the Team Conti cars in the top 10. I think that's the first time we've done that. So good for him and Pro Geek as well. But just glad to be back here. Glad to be talking to you after finishing a race in first.
You kind of touched on it. Brian finishing in the top 10, and obviously Victory Lane is only big enough for one car and one team. But how big is it to have Brian Schoenberg, guys like Brandon Hastings, helping you out throughout the week to try to get this thing into Victory Lane and trying to get this team really put in the right direction?
It definitely takes a ton of load off of my shoulders, being that I can primarily focus on driving. I mean, I still have a lot of input with setups and changes. I mean, I'm pretty good when it comes to all that. I mean, I can work my way around the garage pretty well, but Hastings is able to point me in the right direction sometimes. We can rule things out, and the telemetry has been a game changer. The things that we've done with the telemetry this year, I'm not sure if anybody is using it to the scope that we are, but I can tell you it's definitely helped. An open line of communication with Nick Ottinger and the guys at Galeforce has definitely helped as well. We're not really with them, but we're kind of like an alliance. I'd say we're a pretty strong alliance right now. The information flows pretty freely back and forth, and I think without that, we wouldn't be as good as we are. And their performance has picked up as well since going through with that whole deal. So I think it's helped all of us. It's definitely helped us, and I think without that, Hastings, Brian running laps, we wouldn't be here. So obviously I can't do it myself, and I'm so proud to have those guys working with me again. It's like a flashback to Jay's show during our championship year, and we're running just as good as we did back then. Unfortunately, we're not going to run for the championship, but again, with the season going the way it's gone, I'm super excited to be where we're at.
Now, before we let you go here, obviously you mentioned it, you're not going to make the playoffs. Around 10th place, when the points all shake out, they factor in the drops and all that other things, but the top 20, you've got yourself a pretty good bubble heading into Darlington in these final 4 races. What are the goals in the next 4 races, and can you win at Darlington and go back-to-back? I know it's hard to win in this series, and we've seen it here before, but can you do it back-to-back?
Well, I'm thinking that what we're using here is going to work pretty much everywhere else the rest of the year, so that is a good thing. I think we're going to be really strong there. I think it's going to be attrition. If we can keep it off the wall, not get any damage, and just keep it clean, I think we'll have a good enough car to be up there and contending. I think people are going to turn it up. I think you're going to see Ray turn it up. You're going to have Ryan Luza back in it. I think they're all going to be putting a lot more effort back into it than what we've seen the last couple of weeks, being that they've been pretty solid in the points. So, we could be getting lulled into a false sense of security right now with some of the competition tuning it down a bit. We're just not putting as much effort into it. But even last week in Indy, I mean, you had all of your heavy hitters up there, and we were holding our own, if not running better than they were. So we've done extremely well at Darlington before, almost won a race there a couple of years ago. And like I said, I mean, we've got really good cars now, got a good team. I'm just excited for what's to come. I'm excited to finally get Peak back up front. Like I said, they've been with me for a long time now, and I haven't really run that great the last little while, so good to get them the exposure that they deserve. And as you mentioned, we'll go into Darlington next week. First race of the playoffs, not competing for points, so we'll just go for the win and see what happens, Tim.
Before we let you go, quickly, you mentioned Peak and a bunch of others that are around this race car. Is there anybody else that you need to thank that it helps you get to victory lane for the first time since Watkins Glen in 14?
Yeah, a lot of people. Just big thanks to Peak, Old World, Brian Emmerich for taking me on a couple years ago. Everybody at Team Conti, Brandon Hastings, Brian Schoenberg, David Ankeny, everybody that puts forth effort into this deal, Gale Force, everybody that has a hand in this car, hats off to them because, again, without them, we couldn't do it. So we'll go into Darlington in a couple weeks' time. We'll be really good there, and we'll try to pick us up another win before the year ends in a few weeks.
That is Michael Conti, a winner in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, back in victory lane since his championship year in 2014. Evan, what a show put on by these drivers here, and second place, put up an awesome effort himself.
It won't show up on a stat sheet come the end of the night because it's going to show up as a 2.7 second difference, but this race could have gone either way to either the 5 or the 15. Tonight, Zach Novak does end up in second place, but it's all said and done, and we're trackside with him now. Zach, congratulations. It's a solid night for you guys. It accomplishes the task. You don't get yourself into any issues, and you're going to be playoff racing in 2 weeks' time. We'll get to that in a moment, but first, this race, you start from pole position, out in front. Couple of different pitch strategies, those on that very long green flag stretch that went through 2 cycles of green flag service.
Yeah, Keegan Leahy nailed the Q set this week like he did at Indy, and I knew that if I went into qualifying and just didn't make a mistake, we'd have a good shot at the pole, which obviously we qualified on the pole, so that was awesome for us. Set us good for the rest of the race. I knew we had a good race set as well. We worked on that exact weather like 2 hours before the race, so that worked out perfectly for us. And that first run, we had a second on everybody, and I thought that we had the best car, which I think we were contending with Conti for it. He definitely had the tire advantage there at the end, and we just really didn't have anything for him. The tires were so important. I didn't get that great of a pit stop either, so congrats to him. I really wanted to win that thing for the bonus points and, to go back to back. But all in all, it's a really solid night for us. We're in the chase, and we couldn't ask for anything more.
If you were able to lock that thing out, obviously would have added yourself to quite the list of people who've been able to get back-to-back wins in this thing. Second's good, though, like I said. Inside of the top 8, even if you guys finished dead last, you probably still would have been able to squeak it at the top, just because you guys have been so good this season. You talk about those bonus points. This is where everything changes now. It's the first time we've ever had a chase or a playoff in this championship. You're going to go in there with a couple of bonus points, courtesy of the win that you guys picked up earlier this season, which should put you third, or it'll put you fourth. It'll be the third highest, but Zelensky and Alfala are going to technically be tied for second with 2 wins apiece, 6 bonus points. So you guys are going to go into this fourth. Fourth is the objective to make it into the final round, but it changes. Unlike in the season where there was no win and you're in, that's now a thing. Is that going to change how you guys drive into these next 3 weeks, knowing that you got a little bit of a points advantage going into this, but over the course of 3 weeks, it just takes 1 win to get yourself that golden ticket to Homestead?
I don't know, man. We still got a points race. It's still 3 race stretch. It's just not 1 race. So I like my chances at all the tracks, but I'm really circling Chicagoland on the calendar. I really think if we show up with a good car, that's one of my better tracks on the whole schedule, let alone in the chase. So when it comes to the bonus points, we have 3 points to fall back on, which doesn't seem like a lot, but every point matters in this series. So 3 bonus points, like I said, doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot. And that win at Indy really set us up well for this chase, and to come in Michigan and just have a good run and not make any mistakes was perfect for us.
3 points is better than no bonus points. It puts you ahead of the likes of Vincent, Richardson, Clampett, and Challenger. My next question was going to be, what tracks do you like? You circled Chicagoland as noted, so I'll bring up something that Tim was talking about with Conti there just a minute ago. Kind of size it up your competition. 12 weeks is a pretty good amount of time to kind of look at the guys that you're going to be racing with, and the drivers who you've been racing with up front on a week-in, week-out basis going to be those drivers you're finding with at a championship. Right now, how do you kind of picture your chances going into that, and kind of what's the confidence level as you get set to get this thing underway? Because we've never seen this before, so it's hard to have expectations based on the regular season. How you feeling?
I'll tell you, coming into Daytona, I didn't really expect to even make the top 30. I didn't even expect to qualify into all these races. So, being able to qualify into all the races, have 3 poles as a go or girl homer at this point of the season, 4 top 5s and a win, it's crazy. I think, we bring some of the best cars every week, if not the best cars every week. I think we can compete for a championship, and that's all I can ask for is just having the backing of a great team, and just going to every racetrack with confidence that we can win the race or get a good finish. And like I said, I think Chicagoland is our best chance at that, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the chase and the pressure that it's going to bring.
For a battle that began way back on March 14th from Daytona International Speedway, you guys have come a long way. In parts, the fight just begins. Now, Zach, who makes it happen for you?
I'm going to thank everybody at Lockdown Racing. Excellent finish for Andrew tonight. He finished 6th. Also, David finished 8th. Excellent run for all of us. At our small team, we have about 5 people working on the car every week. So I want to thank them and Keegan Leahy and Matt Bontempi for doing an awesome job on the setup. And got to thank everybody down the list, Brendan Coppinger, Joe Lawrence for helping out, whether it came to spotting, crew chiefing, whatever. He did it all for us this season, and he'll hopefully continue to do that. Logan Sheets, Marcus Lambert, Nick Ward, the spotter, does an excellent job every night, and tonight showed as well. Patrick Crabtree and Richard Holiday. Got to thank all of them. Got to thank St. Pius Pilgrimage for coming on board tonight. They were supposed to be on the car for Chicago, but we bumped it up a few weeks, and definitely paid off. We got a good run for them. And Wilkinson Enterprises, Infinite Creative Solutions. And I also want to thank Devin O'Connor Racing, and lastly, Always Awesome Apparel. Good to see them have 2 cars that had good runs tonight. I'm not really sure if Andrew's car showed up on the broadcast, to be honest, but nonetheless, 2 sponsored drivers for them did really well, and I want to thank all of them. I want to thank you guys for doing the broadcast, and like I said last week, iRacing for doing NPAS.
Well, hopefully this solid finish tonight for you guys can carry some momentum into Darlington. We congratulate you, Zach, on a solid finish here tonight. Most importantly, though, best of luck going into the championship. Excited to see what you and that 15 team can do.
Thanks, Evan.
That's Zach Novak, who comes home in 2nd position tonight. We'll pass things down the line. 3rd place, Logan Clampett. Just needed a night to survive. He gets a little bit more than that. Cam comes home 3rd.
And I think Cam's down the line there, so I'll slide in here and grab a little conversation with Logan Clampett, finishing in position number 3. And you really need this going into the playoffs. Congratulations on making that, first of all. But let's talk about a night at Michigan.
I'm so glad it stayed green that whole race. I don't think it could have been any better, actually. I was definitely not hoping for any cautions, and oh, hey, look where I ended up, like, the past couple weeks stuff, and just we had an amazing setup. We worked pretty hard this week on it, and it just rolled the center really well than anybody else, and killed everyone on the long run, but just came up short. We just needed that tick more speed, just like about every week, to kind of keep up with Novak or beat Novak, whatever. Which they have something that no one else can really figure out, which is really cool by them, so props to them. And then also an awesome win to Michael Conti. I'm so glad he's back and winning races. But no, the race couldn't have gone any better. I'm kind of glad when I saw low wreck, no offense to him, but it just made it a lot easier for me, and then boosted disconnect, and I was just like, oh, hey, I'm locked into the chase, cool. And I was thinking about pulling off something to try and get the win, but instead I was like, no, let's salvage a top 5 out of this, and got a P3, actually same as last year, so kind of happy with the race and happy with the car.
We had mentioned that on the broadcast. Once Ryan Lowe fell out of the field, it almost looked like he got a second wind and pushed a little bit harder, albeit it was early in the race. There were still lots of laps to go. It looked like you had that momentum to try to push yourself a little bit closer to the front, knowing that there really wasn't a whole lot of places to fall outside that top 8.
Yeah, no, there wasn't. So, yeah, again, I was really glad once he wrecked, made it a lot easier for me, but we had a decent starting spot, too. I think we qualified around 10th, and just the setup really just the setup was probably one of the best setups this year, and just thanks to those NX guys over there, especially Jake Sturgis, who worked on the setup all week. It was just thank you times 100 to him, and also thank you to our sponsors, V Racing, iAnalyze Racing, SimLab, and thanks to my sponsors, JDR Graphics and the Drill Spill, for coming on board for tonight's race, the JD Army car. I can't wait to see what's in the future, and hopefully to fight for this championship and trying to show them some muscle these next 3 races to try and make it into the top 4.
Before we let you go, you mentioned getting in on that 8th place, that final transfer spot to get into the playoffs. In a couple of weeks' time, you're only going to be 9 points out of that playoff cutoff to get into the final race at the Homestead Miami Speedway. Starting to sink in. Do you go to Darlington in those 3 races trying to win and you're in? Or do you try to points race for 3 races and try to be the, top or second, trying to lock yourself into Homestead? How do you go about this? This has never been done in this series before. What do you employ as a strategy?
I mean, what I'm probably going to do, it depends, how good you are at the track, this and that. But what I'm going to try and do is just try and salvage a top 10 at Darlington, since that's probably my worst track on the service, so I'm going to be practicing that a lot. And then Chicagoland is one of my first tracks. I want to try and go for the win there and get locked in. And then finally Dover, just try and see what's up there. It all depends where everyone's at, but most of the time just try and go for points, since you have, Ray, Bobby, Novak, Luza, they're all going to be contending for wins. Definitely Luza, Ray, and Novak, and possibly Bobby, but I can tell that Novak and those guys have the best setups this season, so it just all depends on wherever who's at, but yeah, just try and go for points.
There you go. There's Logan Clamp at 3rd place tonight, locks himself into the playoffs, 8th place, and he'll be going for the inaugural playoff championship and that 2017 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze trophy and the $10,000 that goes with it. Cam Walsh has caught up with our 5th place finisher, driver of the number 42, just on the outside of that cutoff, Dylan Duvall.
Yeah, the quick Canadian Dylan Duvall from Halifax, Nova Scotia, joining us once again. It's going to be over the course of the last 12 rounds, 4 top 5s. And so this is certainly not the first conversation, Dylan, that we've had, but this one probably not going to be the happiest. It's one of those situations where we have a new championship format, and you're the on the outside looking in.
Yeah, it's disappointing for sure. I feel like there's a lot of things that could have went better this season. There was a lot of high notes as well. It's quite disappointing when I feel like as the last 3 weeks I've done what I needed to do as a driver to make it. And at New Hampshire I got destroyed on a straightaway with 2 laps to go. And at Indy I got ran over by someone not slowing down for a crash. So between the last 3 races, I really feel like I've done what I needed to as a driver to make it, and on the outside looking in because of that. I can't just blame them either, though, because there's been races this season where I have made my own mistakes, like Pocono. I cost myself a decent amount of points, and so I can't just blame them. But yeah, for sure it's disappointing not to make it, but there's still a lot to race for the rest of the year.
And speaking of, you did finish in the top 5 here, doing your best. So let's talk about it. Michigan, obviously high speeds. You qualified in 7th. You did a lot of fighting on worn tires those last 20 or so laps. We don't normally get super long green flag racing, but for some reason things just seem to click here in Michigan.
Yeah, it was nice to have one of these races go green a lot. The last few have been kind of messy, so it was definitely nice to get some long runs. I felt really good to start the race. I ran up there in the top 5 and thought I could have challenged for the win early in the race. And then I don't know what happened. The 2nd or 3rd run, I really started to struggle and couldn't keep up with Mike. And then the whole field was catching me, and I'm sitting here trying to figure out what to do. I'm changing lines, can't figure it out. And I think I may have made some bad adjustments or something. And the last run, I was a little bit better, but still not the speed I had early in the race. And so I was happy to hold on to 5th, but definitely wish it could have been a little bit better because both of my teammates had the speed to go up there and win the race, and feel like I should have too. And I don't know what I was doing wrong as a driver to not be able to do that, but uh, I'm disappointed that Cody and Kenny had bad luck because we had the potential to have really good finishes between all three of us tonight.
Yeah, a couple of speeding penalties made sure that they finished back near the top 20s. But either way, moving away from Michigan International Speedway, we do still have 4 rounds left, and it's certainly enough time to play spoiler, get a victory or something. You're going to be going to Darlington, Chicagoland, Dover, and of course we're going to Homestead. Darlington's next, August 29th. You at least looking forward to that one?
Last year at Darlington, I tried to play it really safe because it's not one of my better tracks, and I was close on an incident point threshold and just wanted to survive there. So I didn't actually run to my full potential there last year. It's not one of my better tracks, but I'll be interested to see how it goes. And yeah, for sure, rest of the season, the one good thing about not being in the chase is I don't have a whole lot to lose. So I'm going to be doing what I can to try to go out there and see if I can steal a win in one of these last few races.
Well, all right. We'll keep an eye out for that. Dylan, anyone you'd like to give a quick shout-out to before we let you loose?
Yeah, I got to thank Simcraft. It's been great to have them on board this year, and looking forward to the next 2 years with them, and hopefully more after that. Also, have to thank DIY Sim, Tim's Corner Motorsports, and everyone on the team, especially Cody Bias and Justin Bolton. The amount of work they put in every week is just incredible, and we have cars every week that should be able to go out there and win. And I wish we had a few more wins this year, but the season's not over, and hopefully we can snag a few here before it's over.
Dylan Duvall, thank you very much for hopping into the booth with us. We'll hopefully see you soon.
Thanks, Cam.
So that's Dylan Duvall from Halifax, Nova Scotia. And Evan, I don't know how to pronounce that Canadian. I'm sorry.
Well, the good news is he gets another, good finish. So if he continues to get up here, we'll work on the thick Canadian accent for you. I do believe we have what is now our official point standings with the drops factored in. For those who have been hanging out again through this 12-race regular season, only the 11 best finishes have counted, and we have those official numbers in. So the regular season will end as follows. Bobby Zelensky, 422 points. Ray Alfala, 378. Zach Novak, 365. Ryan Luza, 361. Logan Clampett, 351. Christian Challenger, 345. 343 for Corey Vincent in 7th. And a final driver to make the top 8 cut, Marcus Richardson with 335 points. Strong night for Michael Conti, comes up 21 points shy of that cutoff. So those points are reset. And let's talk, Tim, about how this playoff grid will work going into 2 weeks' time. Everybody is reset now to 2,000 points for the drivers in the top 8. 9th on the back will continue to fight amongst themselves. And we are given 3 bonus points for each trip to victory lane. So Ryan Luza is going to lead the playoffs going into Darlington with 209 points. Zelensky and Alfala, 2 wins apiece, going to get 2,006 points. Zach Novak, 1 win at 2,003. And then the final 4 names, Clampett, Challenger, Vincent Richardson in without any bonus points at 2,000. So that's how they'll look in 2 weeks' time.
And I like what Logan Clampett had said. And the thing that changes from round number 1 or the regular season to round number 1 is that if you win in these 3 races, you're locked in to Homestead, Miami to battle for the championship. So the only way you can really secure your spot in battling for the championship on the last night of the season is if you win in the next 3 races. And as you mentioned, different tracks in Darlington, Chicagoland, and Dover. I kind of like the way Logan Clampett thinks, and the fact that if I'm consistent and I'm consistently up front, I'm going to be battling it out at Homestead. If 3 of those drivers win, there's still 1 spot on points. So I kind of like the way Logan Clampett thinks, but Bobby Zelensky's won 2 races this season. Ray's won 2 races. Zach's won 1 and came close again tonight. And Ryan Luza has won 3. Ryan Luza has been up and down consistency-wise. He's had a lot of great finishes. He's also had a lot of inconsistencies as well. So I think if Ryan Luza can win and win early, you'll see him in the final race. I think you'll see Ray Alfala battled it out. He's been in these championship situations before, and he's had some great runs at Homestead. The question is, who gets that third and fourth place spot? Yes, Zielinski's won a race, and Zach Novak's won a race, and they've been strong, but there's only 3 races, and there's only 3 races to win, plus you get 1 on points. It's difficult to see. You got to feel, though, for Michael Conti and Dylan Duval. You think back to Sonoma early in the race. He drops that gearbox, Michael Conti does, and something happened to that race car. It blew up. It quit running. Dylan Duval had some issues in that race as well. He had the issues at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They fall about 20 points or just over 20 points short of making to that championship cutoff. So it's going to be interesting for sure. I like Clampett's strategy, though. You got to think points, too, when it comes to this 3 races.
And here's how the opening round of the playoffs will work. It's going to make up rounds 13, 14, and 15 of this season. That includes Darlington, Chicago, and Dover through this round. And as we go into this, a win by any of the 8 playoff participants in races 13 to 14 to 15 promotes them automatically into round 2 of the playoffs at Homestead. That's assuming that the drivers do not accumulate enough incident points that would suspend them for that race. That's why Ray Alfalo was not in action here tonight. Wins at round 1 of the chase will not carry any bonus points into round number 2. So we were just talking about how a win gives you 3 bonus points. That will not be a thing to transfer into the final race. It's just simply a win and you're in. Chase competitors also that win in this round, Cam, must start all 3 of the playoff races in this round to be eligible for that championship. You cannot win at Darlington and not show up for the next 2 weeks.
No, why wouldn't you want to show up? I mean, we've got Chicagoland, we've got Dover, and obviously you need to be there for Homestead. But, I mean, the schedule, I think we've got some really great tracks to finish it out. I'm really looking forward to Darlington. I missed out on that last season. Really looking forward to Dover as well. And, of course, Chicagoland and Homestead. The final 4 tracks are going to be fantastic, and I think the racing is going to be good too. You're going to get people like Dylan Duval was saying. You know, he's got nothing to lose right now. He can just go for a victory. Why not get a victory in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series? But either way, I have to say, Evan, this series, this 2017 edition of the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, I got to say, the pro drivers, the 2016 pro drivers, they are really taking this series by force. I mean,
first and second.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to see just how well they're doing, and I can only imagine if this 2016 Pro Drivers lineup is great, what's going to happen with the 2017 Pro Drivers lineup? Who else is starting to come up through? And I think that's a great thing to see when you've got fresh blood coming in and really rejuvenating the series, which is already one of the powerhouses of sim racing.
And with all of that being said, round number 12, but most importantly, the regular season now falls into our rearview mirror. As always, we want to thank you for watching this special presentation of RaceSpotTV on iRacing Live and the Motor Racing Network. You can find out more information about all 3 of iRacing's World Championship Series online at wcs.iracing.com. On behalf of the entire Tuesday night team, camera angles provided by Istvan Vallo, the broadcast CG done by Simon Grossman, Kevin Papey, their entire team, Andy Warder on the graphics, of course, for Will Vincent, Hugo Louise, and the entire team at RaceSpotTV, and for the crew topside tonight. For Tim Terry, Cam Walsh, and myself, Evan Posocco, I want to thank you for joining us and congratulate Michael Conti, once again a winner at iRacing's top oval level. We are going to be back in 2 weeks' time. The playoffs begin on August the 29th from the Darlington Raceway as we get set for the first ever playoff for a championship in this, the 2017 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, powered by iRacing. That race and every race can be found right here on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. Until then, good night.